My name is Becky Witt, and I'm the Assistant Counsel to the BMZA. To my left is Gregory Fox, who's filling in as Assistant Counsel as well today. Then to his left is Jay Bonner, Board Member. Then Leland Shelton, Board Member. James Fields is the Chairman of the Board. Bill Cunningham is a Board Member, and Sabrina Johnson-Turner, also Board Member. If you haven't already, please silence your cell phones. If you need to have a private conversation with somebody, please do so in the hallway. Please wear a mask when you are in this room. And when it's your turn to speak, please identify yourself and spell your name for the court reporter, and be ready to be sworn in to testify if you want to speak. If you haven't already signed in at the front of the room on the sign-in sheet and you plan to speak today, please sign in now. And everybody who wants to speak should sign in, including any attorneys, applicants, opposition support, anybody. So thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this session of the BMZA. We may not call the cases in the order that they appear on the docket. Our case docket is divided into two parts. There's a consent docket, and then there's a contested docket. The consent docket are those cases for which the board believes it has sufficient information to approve the application. And in that instance, I will call those cases in order, and the folks who are on the consent docket will line up, and we'll hear reports from planning and staff. And then I will ask if you have anything else to add to your application before we resolve your case. So we have a few on the consent docket today. On those contested cases, however, when you're called, you'll be sworn. All the parties in your case, both the appellant and the opposition, will be sworn. And the appellant will go first, present the matter, opposition second, and then the appellant has the last word, just like in court. And then we will be deliberating on your matter, on the contested cases, at the end of your matter. So unless we need some additional information, we'll tell you that during your presentation. If you would like to stay for that deliberation, you may do so, but you cannot participate or partake in that in any way. But if you have to leave, you can call the BMZA office to get the result of the matter, get the decision. You can call 410-396-4301. Again, 410-396-4301. But we do ask that you not take any action in furtherance of your project until you receive your decision from the BMZA, and do not, under any circumstances, commence work within Baltimore City without pulling the proper permits. We do have one case that has been postponed, a case that was originally on the docket that has now been postponed, case number 2021-127. That's 2507 North Howard Street. Caroline Hecker was the appellant. Anybody here for 2507 North Howard Street, that matter will not be heard today. Apparently that's been moved to the August 30th docket. All right. For the consent matters, I'm going to ask that, again, for those folks who are the appellants for those matters, you come up and we'll all swear you in at once, get you all sworn in at once, and we'll proceed with those cases. Case numbers 2022-224, and actually when you come up, you'll line up to my left, down that way. I don't think we have too many. 2022-224, 2804 Clare Street, 2022-225, 2000 Cloman Street, 2022-226, 2821 Clare Street, 2022-227, 2096 Cloman Street, 2022-228, 2100 through 2120 Cloman Street. The appellant is BGE, and I know they have representation here. Additionally, case number 2022-231, 801 Southeast Avenue. Chad Smith is the appellant. And you can come on up and line up. This gentleman has 5 cases to to address. So, and also we have 2022-233, 1510 East Fort Avenue. Rich Bird. Okay. we could just swear these parties.
Do you swear or affirm under the penalty of perjury that the answers that you give and statements that you make will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, so initially, going to call several cases. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
By your face. For those of you who don't know, Mr. Derek Baumgartner's here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right.
Nothing
well,
like
welcome
high
back, Derek.
expectations, sir.
We appreciate you taking a visit and coming back.
Thank you.
So we have case 2022-224, 2022-225, 2022-226, 2022-227, and 2022-228. Those addresses are 2804 Clare Street, 2000 Cloman Street, 2028 Clare Street, 2096 Cloman Street, and 2100 through 2120 Cloman Street. BGE is the appellant, represented ably by Mr. Baumgartner, and these cases each involve a request to use the property as an electrical substation, outdoor, a variance for perimeter wall 12 feet in height. Is that correct, Mr. Baumgartner?
That's correct.
All right. I'll hear from planning and staff with regard to these matters.
Sure. So the conditional use and variances requested. The conditional use is for an electric substation outdoor. And there's two variances, one for front and corner side yard fence height, 3 feet is allowed, 12 feet is proposed. So it's a 9-foot variance. And then rear and interior side yard fence height, or wall height, I guess in this case, 6 feet is allowed, 12 feet is proposed. So it's a 6-foot height variance requested. So it's a 12-foot wall all the way around, but the height allowances are different based on whether it's front and corner side yard or rear and interior side yard.
Thank you. Martin French for the Baltimore City Planning Department. Planning Department notes that this applicant has worked with the community and with the planning staff on the preparation of these plans. The proposal is to basically redevelop into a more effective and powerful electric substation in the Westport area. The department is supportive of these applications and recommends approval of all 5 of these applications. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. French. Mr. Baumgartner, again, welcome. Sir, is there anything you'd like to add to your applications for each of these properties at this time?
Very briefly, Mr. Chairman, thank you all for the opportunity to appear before you. I wanted to briefly introduce our team. We have Bonnie Johansson from BGE. We have Joe Kopitish from Burns & McDonnell. We have Zach Fish over here behind the board. I apologize, Zach. Mr. Fish is an engineer, and we have Shrivi Srihar as well, who is an engineer. They are here to answer any questions that the board would like. I will keep this very brief, Mr. Chairman. This is essentially a redevelopment of an existing substation. If you're traveling south on Annapolis Road, you make a left onto Clare Street. There is an existing lot, which is what we call the Clare Street substation on your left. On the right-hand side is an existing substation that we refer to as the Westport Substation. These appeals, all 5 of them, are essentially those 5 lots, 1 on the north side of Clare, 4 on the south side of Clare. They're being redeveloped with new infrastructure, new equipment. The degree of construction and the wall itself trigger the conditional use requirements and the variance requirements, so that's why we are before you here today. This exhibit we have in your packet. I did want to submit these for the record.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What I've just handed up is a revised memorandum, includes exhibits. Exhibit 9 is a new exhibit, is photographs of the posting notices showing the revised date as well. The application itself meets all standards for the use standards for the electric substation, the conditional use standards, as well as the variance standards. The memorandum goes through in great detail all of those standards. I would like to highlight that the fence height is for the safety and security of both the site, the infrastructure, and the general public as well. As you can imagine, a 3.5-foot fence will do very little to protect electrical infrastructure. That is the need for the 12-foot, in this instance, wall height The wall has been designed with community input to make it as aesthetically pleasing as a 12-foot wall can be. We would request approval of all 5 applications, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have regarding all 5 applications.
Okay. I have no questions. Any questions from the board?
None.
All right, well, Mr. Baumgartner, the board having heard your appeals, we believe we have sufficient information to approve your appeals. Thanks so much.
Thank you all very much.
All right.
Derek?
All right, calling case number 2022-231, 801 South East Avenue. Chad Smith?
Yes, that's correct.
Welcome. This is a request to construct a third-floor addition. Is that correct?
That's correct.
I'll hear any reports from staff and planning.
So for this third floor addition, the only variance that we have as part of our analysis of the application is maximum lot coverage. 60% is allowed, 75% is proposed, so it would be a 15% variance requested. I also have plans for the board to look at if you all want to see them over here.
The planning department has no comment on this application. Thank you.
Mr. Smith, is there anything you'd like to add to your application at this time, sir?
I would like to add one thing. I would also like permission to be granted the 45-foot height limit as opposed to the 35-foot height limit, based on the note that a row house located on an interior lot that adjoins the street right away of at least 30 feet wide would be permitted the 45-foot height limit, which I believe my property qualifies for.
Okay, so that would be by conditional use, if he qualifies for that. Martin, do you have a sense of, is that in your memo? Or you didn't write a memo for that?
My proposed building height right now is 38 foot 2 inches.
Say again?
My proposed building height is 38 foot 2 inches, so I'm just over the 35-foot height limit.
We might need to look this up in the code and recall it at a later point, because
Okay.
we're not sure offhand if he qualifies
Yeah,
for
that's,
that.
I have,
Conditional use.
well, this is not something you brought that's contained in your application. You're making that amendment now?
it's not, I wouldn't call it an amendment. It was in my drawings to start with. I just wanted to clarify it before going back for permit.
Sir, is 801 a corner property or an interior?
It's an interior lot that abuts an alleyway, so it's an end of group unit, but not a corner unit.
Do you have it up?
The right-of-way is 68 feet wide.
Okay, it sounds like a technicality in this case, but I think we recognize your point. You
Okay.
may need to have the conditional height approval from this board as well. Yes, if that's an alley and not a public street that borders your property on the side.
Correct.
Okay. All right, so it sounds like then the variance would not just be lot coverage, but also conditional use as to height, up to 38 feet or 38 and a half?
38 feet 2 inches.
Okay, 38 feet 2 inches.
Is there any reason to remove that from consent?
No,
Okay.
we can just add that to the resolution,
Okay.
if the board wants to approve it, yes.
Any objection? Anyone from the board?
No.
Okay, very well. Mr. Smith, the board having heard your appeal, we believe we have sufficient information to approve your appeal. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you very much.
Calling case number 2022-233, 1510 East Fort Avenue. Rich Bird.
Yes, sir. I'm filling in for Rick Bird.
Okay, your name, sir?
Darren Green.
Okay, Mr. Green. This matter addresses variance to bulk regulations related to the construction of a 3-story rear addition, 148 square feet, and a rooftop deck. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. I'll hear from staff and planning.
Again, this is a variance to maximum lot coverage. 60% is allowed, 73% is proposed, so it's a 13% variance requested.
Planning Department has no comment on this application. Thank you.
Mr. Green, is there anything you'd like to add to your application at this time, sir?
Just my client is requesting this 3-story addition, just to grow the home for an additional bedroom, additional bathroom as well, for a growing family and rooftop deck, of course, to just be able to look over this beautiful city. And that's it.
All right.
Thank you,
very
Mr. Chairman.
Well, the board, having heard your appeal, we believe you have sufficient information to approve your appeal. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
All right. Good luck to you. Oh, got it. We have a scheduling issue. At this point, we need to take a break in the proceedings. One of our colleagues has an obligation in the court across the street. So we're going to do that, and hopefully it won't take too long. It depends on the amenability of the judge.
What are we going to do? Take a break?
Yeah, we need to take a break because she's got to go to postponement court.
Okay, so then we are off the record, and we will reconvene.
22 West 27th Street, AB Associates is the appellant. So anyone here in opposition to 18 through 22 West 27th Street, please come forward. And the opposition will be to my right, the appellant, and witnesses for the appellant will be to the left. Slide on down, ma'am. This matter is seeks to retain an existing structure containing 22 dwelling units to construct a multifamily dwelling that will contain an additional 38 dwelling units for a total of 60 dwelling units with a total of 16 off-street parking spaces. Is that correct, Mr. Berry?
That's correct.
All right. Could we get all of the witnesses sworn, please?
Do you swear or affirm under the penalty of perjury that the answers that you give and the statements that you make will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yep.
Yes.
All right. I'll hear from staff and planning.
Okay, there are 2 variances being requested here. One is a minimum lot size variance, so 45,000 square feet is required for this number of units. 23,250 square feet exist, so it's a 21,750 square foot variance. And also a minimum rear yard setback variance, 25 feet is required, 12 feet is proposed, so it would be a 13-foot variance requested. We've received a letter in support from the Charles Village Civic Association. We also have a letter of opposition from an adjoining neighbor talking about issues specifically relating to tenants in the existing building and issues that she has had with those tenants. And also the fact that her house would be overshadowed by this addition. I think that's it.
Thank you. Planning Department has reviewed this application, noted the matter of the lot area. The department estimates that this would amount to a 50% variance of the lot area requirement and encourages the applicant to provide the board with information to justify such a large amount of variance. However, that said, the department notes that the Charles Village community has worked with the applicant on this. However, the applicant still is in need of meeting with planning department staff and with specific criteria which would relate to the site plan itself. The department is recommending that approval of this application be subject to the conditions that the proposed new building is completed in accordance with plans and designs approved by the Department of Planning, which has yet to happen, that all landscaping is provided and maintained in accordance with a landscape plan approved by the Department of Planning, and that the applicant furnish a copy of the housing subsidy contract for government assistance of all added dwelling units for the elderly prior to receiving a use and occupancy permit for the new building. That last request is justification for the parking situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. French. Mr. Berry, having heard those conditions, is your client agreeable to those conditions?
Yes, we are.
All right. Go ahead, sir. Proceed.
So we have a brief presentation today for the board that consists of the architect who's going to explain the plans, and the developer and the owner of the property, Matt Teichman, who's going to explain the reasons behind the request from a state financing standpoint. That's been an issue with the community. As was mentioned by Mr. French, we've been working with Charles Village and the immediate neighbors for probably over 8 or 9 months, frankly. And we've gone through a series of alternatives to try to respond to their concern about height. I'll let the architect get into the design, but just in general, we believe that this property, first of all, you have a package, I think, of information, is unique within the general community, and particularly that zone. It's unique for several reasons. It concerns a renovated historic building. It was done over 30 years ago for 22 subsidized housing units. The remainder of the property, which is large, has an unused parking lot that the tenants do not use. It has some open space. It has essentially an abandoned garage facing 27th Street. In order to bring the 22-unit building up to modern-day housing standards and to obtain state financing, you'll hear more about this. The developer has a plan that would be a new building that we then had to decide how to sit it on the site that would be appropriate to the historic district that it's in. Another aspect of this project, there's an historic easement, there's an easement with the Maryland Historic Trust that requires their approval of any new building or any renovation of the existing building. And so that in and of itself sets up a compatibility that's going to be determined under the National Department of Interior standards. Originally, when this was first filed, there was a 6-story building in the back of the site that's next to a 75-foot tall nursing home, formerly North Charles General Hospital. And the architect set a 3-story building facing 3-story buildings along 27th Street. So it was 2 wings, one a 3-story, one a 6-story. There was a small open space on Maryland Avenue. And after several of these community meetings where concerns were raised about height, shadow, light and air, alternatives were prepared, and the result was to lower the 6-story building to 5 stories, increase the 3-story building to 4 stories to keep the number of units necessary to obtain state financing. The architect's going to go into the results of a sun study that was shared with the immediate neighbors that we would argue presents a negligible impact on them. We redesigned the building to move the building further away from the adjacent neighbor and also not block a window that he has on the side of his house. So we did all that in response to these community meetings. I'm going to argue at the end, I think, why this is a unique property again, and we'll answer any questions. But I think Mr. Green, the architect, should go through the presentation, and then we'll have the developer, Mr. Teichman, explain the overall renovation program and why it's important for the state to provide, again, 60 low-income housing units in Charles Village. We also appreciate the support of the Charles Village Civic Association.
Okay,
Great.
thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'll go briefly through the plans that you have before you.
Okay.
But on the right-hand side here, you'll see the existing site. And as it's been mentioned, there's an unused parking lot that's located on that site, and then the existing building, which is a historic building that contains the 22 existing apartment units, is located here. The Future Care sort of taller building that rises 7 stories is located there at the corner of the site at Morton Street and at this intersection. And then the residential housing that's at 3 stories is sort of surrounding the context of the site. So in the proposed, what we developed was to front this 27th Street corridor with the 3-story context that exists throughout the community, and then to develop a section towards the rear in this L form that would respond more contextually, as you can see, to the larger building there. Initially, we had that at 6 stories, 1 story below what that building is. We resolved that in concert with the community to a 5-story sort of section that's in the back, and then this front section here is 3-story. We also, in working with the community, developed a green space strategy such that what you see on the new building is that it's entirely a green roof, and then we retained as much green space on the grounds where possible. We've also have the parking sort of tucked under the cantilevered section of this building. Let's just flip this around. The front part of the site here, which is where the new building is going, again, will be more in the 3-story sort of context to respond to the historic building and then the remaining fabric. On the ground floor, we'll essentially touch the building here at the street. In the rear, we'll have the parking, which is essentially cantilevered under the L-shaped portion of the building. As it rises up, it forms an L-shaped building and then thus an L-shaped rooftop. In this particular building will be the 38 units, which will be 1-bedroom apartments. Again, the 22 units of the existing in that building. The elevation itself, on the front here, the existing building, sort of the ghosting of that. Again, the sort of proposed here, and then towards the rear, the larger part extends. So this is 27th Street cut through the Morton Street section, the taller building that's back here, and then the section of the 5-story that we've resolved towards the back. And let's flip to the shade study here. With the shade study in your packet, what you'll see is that we started out with several vignettes. We've modeled this in all 4 seasons, winter, summer, spring, fall. And the first one that's important is to look at what the site does without any building on it. And so what you'll notice is that the Future Care building really casts the shadow on those neighbors that are there. When we put in our building, whether it's the winter, spring, summer, or the fall, it's creating no additional adverse effect on those neighboring properties. And so you'll see the various vignettes of when that occurs.
Any questions of so far?
None so far, sir.
Okay, Mr. Taylor.
Good afternoon. So, by way of background, in beginning of 2018, the state of Maryland.
Take your name again.
Matt Teichman, BCI Management. In 2018, the state of Maryland was in the process of auctioning off a number of properties that belonged to City Homes, which was a developer operator of affordable housing projects, and I believe it was through a bankruptcy that involved lead paint suit that required them to liquidate the properties. The state had reached out to us, we were in touch with the state on a number of other projects that we have both in Baltimore City, Baltimore County. We agreed to take the project on and maintain the affordability component, which could have been technically wiped out at the time that the bankruptcy was triggered. We took on the project and we committed to the state that we would work in best efforts to maintain and protect the asset, as well as protect the residents that are living in the community. Over the last few years, considering the small scale of the project, we found it extremely difficult to maintain the affordability of it, maintain the commitment and standard that we want to provide our residents with, and justify economics that come with the cost of upgrading the property. As Mr. Berry mentioned, the project went through a tax credit rehab in 1993, so it's fairly aged. And if we were to consider renovating just the existing 22 units as part of a 4% resyndication, the scale of the project is too small to justify the cost associated with the Light Tech project. So we began conversations. We met with the councilman, with the local community. We've gotten their support. Requesting the size that we have is to justify the cost that's associated with the tax credit project, which basically affords itself based on the basis, the total qualified basis the project carries. And so by rehabbing, renovating, bringing up to code the existing 22 units, which over the years have probably aren't currently maintaining the new fair housing and ADA requirements. So that would allow us to upgrade the existing 22, add the additional, I think it's 38, to the project, which would give us enough of a basis to justify economically being able to actually continue running the project, providing quality housing to the community.
So, basically, the takeaway from that is, though it would be a nice idea to just comply with, the law and current standards to improve and bring up to code the 22 existing units.
They're in code, yeah.
Yeah.
So they are in code. When I say that the 22 units are not ADA compliant, so,
Okay.
for example, the kitchens require that somebody in a wheelchair has to have X amount of space between the sink and the wall. The project being built in 1993
Mhm.
did not have those
Right.
ADA regs then.
Sure.
So
So we have them now, we've got to comply with them.
in the event we wanted to get HUD financing, the project isn't out of compliance.
Got it. Okay.
Okay.
Understood.
So if we wanted to, which most low-income new developments or rehab projects would be HUD financed, as part of that HUD financing, HUD would require us to re-renovate all the existing kitchens, re-renovate the bathrooms, but there are endless projects that are built that are aged, which would require them changing layouts if they were to get new financing today. So appreciate getting a chance to clarify that point.
Okay, thank you, that's helpful. Any questions for this gentleman?
I'm good.
No?
All right.
Andy?
Sandy Sparks, the Charles Village Civic Association. I chair the Charles Village Land Use Committee, which meets monthly to go over projects that are happening in Charles Village. The committee worked for at least a year from the very first meeting that we had through the point where there were plans to present and interact with the immediate community. We had 3 meetings. It was winter time and COVID time, and usually we would have the meetings on the site, but we were lucky to be able to meet at 2701 North Charles. So we attracted residents, immediate residents, and the immediate neighbor attended all 3 of those meetings and gave us input. And so we, the Civic Association, we worked to mediate the impact on the immediate neighbor in particular. We also believe the improvement of this property for low-income housing is very important, and there aren't that many opportunities, frankly, to do it in a might be a stretch to say an elegant way, but of a very accessible way with the lot, with the space adjoining. So it's an infill project, and we're very supportive of good infill.
Thank you so much.
Were the folks in opposition at your meeting?
Yes, Sharon was.
Thank you.
Sharon lives on Maryland Avenue, about a half a block from the site.
Thank you.
All right.
Mr. Barry, before you get started, is there a letter from the council person?
No, I've not. We've asked for such a letter, and maybe you had direct communication with him,
Okay.
What district is this?
but no letter that I'm aware of. We've asked.
Stokes.
Yeah. We met with him on site, walked him through the project, discussed all the different, renovating the existing project and what that would mean, potentially jeopardizing the future of the affordability component versus doing a larger scaled project, which in his mind also, which is true, it would draw much more larger capital interest and investment. I think it would be,
Thank you.
we can get a letter.
We'll let Mr.
Okay, all right. Ma'am? Again, state your
Good
name.
afternoon. My name is Sharon Guida, Guida. I'm a resident of the 2700 block of Maryland, immediately across the street from the project. The first thing I want to bring up is that we've collected letters, and pursuant to the website instructions, I made 8 copies. And these are from residents, the 2721 Maryland Avenue in opposition, 2722 Maryland, 2723, and 2729 Maryland Avenue, and 2730 Maryland Avenue, and 2716 Maryland Avenue. I just want to make sure I've read them all to the and 2718 Maryland Avenue.
And these are all
And I
direct?
have a copy for the applicant, and I have copies, the 8. Who should I give them to?
These addresses are all directly across the street?
Yes. And the first ones that I've listed are adjacent to the property on the same side of the street as the property.
Gotcha.
And Mr. Billman is the one immediately at 2721, because that's where the addresses start, because of how long the building takes up the block. And he was wanting to be here, but he thought the hearing was the 19th, and he asked the applicant for a postponement, but that was denied. So I'm here presenting on behalf of all of the neighbors who have objected and whose objections I've listed there for you, along with their addresses. Firstly, I want to say that in reference to the off-street parking element, the fact that the code requires in an R8 zone 1 parking unit, off-street parking unit per unit, and the exception in section 16-602D, which is a table, allows a reduction to 1 per 4 units only when the housing is for elderly. Now, when the development was presented to the community, it was presented as a low-income development. This is the first I'm hearing that there's an elderly component to that. And so I would ask this board to carefully scrutinize the applicant's intent as to who is going to occupy the dwelling units and whether they are in fact elderly or otherwise low income. And I want to say first and foremost that the community supports any development of the existing building. This historic building, it's 22 units, and we would really look forward to any improvement to that building. However, the fact that the current lot area is insufficient, it is for the 60 units that are being proposed, 8,750 square feet is required, and 750 feet per dwelling unit, for 60 units is required. That would be 44,625 square feet, while the lot is only 22,500 square feet. So the variance requested, as stated by planning, would be 50% of what was required by the zoning code. So the variance that is being requested is a major one. And as a major variance, this zoning board has to hear that section 5-308 of the zoning code, which specifies certain required findings have to be made. before that variance could be granted. And just to prelude what I'm going to go into, the community supports low-income housing. That's not the problem. The problem is the number of units that are being proposed, the size of the building, and the fact that these additional units, 38 units, are being attached to an historic building, which is then going to raise the height of the building, and it's going to create a density problem for that lot. The neighbors who have opposed it are directly affected, and they don't really accept the shade study that's been provided because they know how close this building is going to be to their backyards, as opposed to how close the future care building is. It's further away and adjacent and further up on 27th, on North Charles. And it doesn't have the impact that the applicant claims. And this new building would have a much greater impact on the enjoyment of their property. And also, those row houses that are being affected are on the east side of the 2700 block of Maryland as you go up. So they have enjoyed a backyard and an alley, and then the extension of the future care building. And that has not interrupted their enjoyment. This new dwelling will have a bigger impact on that and the density of the lot itself. So in terms of the required findings, they have to find that there's a hardship and a practical difficulty. And the only hardship that I think has been explained by the applicant is the fact that they need to put more units in to make the income generated from the building justify the cost of the development. And the zoning code specifically says that it cannot be precluded. And in section 5-308(3), the purpose of the variance is not based exclusively on a desire to increase the value of the property or the income potential. And that's bottom line what we're dealing with here. So the community is asking the zoning board to look and enforce in this zoning code, which protects the residents, the existing residents, from such a development that would encroach on their use and their enjoyment of the property, of their own existing properties. And that's one of the definite things we have going here. And in terms of the other provisions, an unnecessary hardship is caused by the code. Well, we know that's true. Purpose of the variance is not based exclusively on a desire to increase value or income potential. And the variance will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property in the immediate area. The opposition letters that I've presented justify that. And we contend that this development would substantially impair the property values in the neighborhood, while the development of the existing 22 units in the historic building would enhance the value of the neighborhood. The addition of these 38 units will do the opposite. And the height of the building is not in character with the rest of the buildings in the neighborhood on the Maryland Avenue side and on the 27th Street side. And lastly, I just wanted to mention, as to the Charles Village Civic Association's letter of support, while it does emphasize the importance of additional low-income housing in the city, what it fails to address are those requirements of 5-308 in terms of the adverse effect on the neighborhood, the density, and the size of the lot. So we contend that that letter of support should not be conclusive as to this board's conclusion as to whether the community supports it, because the community directly affected by the development does not support it. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Barry?
Yes. First of all, we would offer the expert testimony of Mr. Green to further explain the Sun study. The letters that we just received right now really indicate some conjecture on the part of residents on Maryland Avenue, in my opinion, that are worried about the study. They don't believe the study. And here we have an expert. We provided that information to the community more than a month ago, and we're just hearing they still have some concerns about. We'll offer the architect if there are any questions about that. Going to the variance standards, I think if you look at your Google Maps that you have available to you, you'll see that this property is quite different than any of the row houses, three-story row houses along Maryland 27th Street in that general zone. The zoning code permits a 80% lot coverage, and whenever you look into these redevelopment scenarios, you have a choice of building lower buildings that take up more of the lot, or taller buildings that provide more open space. In this case, I think we have almost 48% versus 80% of open space, which will substantially increase the green space along Maryland Avenue. We're not counting the green roofs under that. So I think it meets the uniqueness standards in and of itself. The conditions were not caused by the applicant. The purpose is to provide the total rehabilitation, as you've heard from the developer, for additional low-income housing. The state, federal guidelines, HUD guidelines put these requirements on the developer in order to have a successful project. That's not strictly income potential for the developer. It's basically making a better project for the residents of the development. And we have Mr. Teichman can also explain if there are any questions about how the state financing program works, although I think he did that quite eloquently just a few minutes ago. Ms. Guidas keeps saying exclusively increasing income potential, and I think while there's clearly some additional income needed to provide a better project, it's not exclusively by any means. Some of the letters talk about the parking problem. And the parking lot, Mr. Teichman will testify, is not used by the existing tenants. It was because of the nature of their tenancy. They just don't have cars, and they're not using the parking lot. It's a wasteland today. We have to provide additional parking, which we think may or may not be used by the same level of tenants. But we think it's something that the zoning code does allow these reduction in parking for these tenants, and we think we can take advantage of it. As I said, will not substantially impair or be injurious to the community. That's one of the standards. This is in a state, it's in a state historic district, National Register district, and it also has an easement. The Maryland Historic Trust will have very strict architectural guidelines that require this project to be compatible with the existing neighborhood from a design standpoint. That's number one. We started out with a taller building. We now have a lower building. The height on 27th Street went from 3 stories to 4 stories, so we would have more open space. We didn't want to block this neighbor's window, and we didn't want to take up the open space along Maryland Avenue. These were the options that we developed, and we think in that sense, the new plan does not injure. The letters and the emails claim that their property values, there's been no expert testimony to that. And certainly the existence of the low-income 22-unit building hasn't hurt. Many of these neighbors moved in after that building was completed. We also think that the conditional use standards in zoning code section 5406 can be met. The conditional use standard is needed because of the height. There's a 45-foot height limit today. We're asking it to be increased to 55 feet. That's for the back 5-story building. And that conditional use standards, they sort of mirror the zoning code standard for variances. We would argue, and I would argue, that we meet those standards as well, and I can go through those if the board wishes. So we think the opportunity to create a modern complex of 60 subsidized affordable units. It's been endorsed by Charles Village. We meet the zoning code standards. I hope the board will approve the variances and conditional use necessary. And if there are any questions of the developer and the architect in response to the community concerns, they're available for at your disposal.
I just wanted to clarify an important point. The way these affordable housing, section 42 of the IRS code are built, it's the opposite of an income-driven process. The state is allocated tax credits annually by state based on the census that is allocated out to developers who earn tax credits in lieu of constructing a project, being that these rents are restricted, which means you can't just build a new project and charge what you want. You've got to be no greater than the established HUD annual rent limit. The only way that it's afforded to be built is by qualifying your qualified basis, which the state processes, what that amount is, and you either earn a 4% or 9% tax credit. So there's actually very little rental income that drives any of the low-income housing developments. And so I thought it was important to just really clarify that again. The project is able to be developed, built in lieu of the tax credits that are earned for 10 years of the 30 years that it's required to be affordable. But the income is actually never a driving factor in valuing any affordable housing projects. The income is covering your operating expenses, but developers, investors don't purchase or operate or build affordable housing for the rental income. That's the antithesis of the project. So I just thought it would be important to clarify that.
Thank you.
I just have Adeline.
Well, they have the last word.
Is there any questions about our architect and the Sun study? We can go through that in some detail if you'd like. As he testified to, there was no appreciable difference over what exists today based on the studies at different points of the year.
If you wouldn't mind pulling that study back up.
Bring it closer as well.
And just walk us through the various iterations that are depicted on your study.
Try to speak into the microphone, one of the microphones.
Here, just,
Can you hear me now?
yes, sir.
Okay. So the important aspect is this first image here, which shows the site with no building, so that you can understand how the sun and shade impacts the current neighborhood. This is the 27th Street.
If you're able to, if you could, we can see it pretty well. If you could turn a little bit better so that the
Ms. Guida
opposition could see it.
Ms. Guida, if you come in
Keep in
closer.
mind, we're still on rebuttal, so.
Okay. And Al, can you hold this on?
Yeah.
Great,
okay.
thank you.
So this is at winter in the morning with no building. And so on the 27th Street side, you'll see that the shade is cast here. On the Maryland Avenue side, you'll see the shade casted here. Towards the rear of the property, the tall Future Care building, you'll see that the shade is there. And so we show this one, we're going to show a litany of them, but we show this one because the neighborhood and the adjacent contiguous properties are already in shade based on the existing building that is there. Our new building has no impact on that. Then we start off looking at winter in the morning with the new building and you see again sort of the same configuration. Winter at noon, winter in the afternoon, and then going to spring morning, spring noon, spring evening, summer morning, summer noon, summer evening, fall morning, fall noon, fall evening. And again, you can look at this on 27th Street side, the Maryland Avenue side, this Morton Street aspect, to get an understanding of what the shade and sun study is depicting as it relates to our proposed building versus those existing buildings that are in the neighborhood.
So effectively, with regard to all the different scenarios, different seasons, different times of the year, the shade situation is not enhanced with the addition of the new buildings. Is that?
It's not creating an adverse effect on those neighboring properties as a result of that proposed building.
When you say not creating an adverse effect, what do you mean by that?
So in other words, this is already creating an adverse effect on those buildings.
The
So-
taller building that
Yeah,
already
the taller
exists.
building. So in other words, if this building was not here, there would not be any shade on this rear yard. And this is one of the adjacent property owners. Because that building's there and we can clearly see that shade, then we add our building, you can clearly see this building's not producing any more additional shade on that property that's already in shade.
So your point is that the taller building is the entity or the object that creates the
Yes,
shade
it's a
issues.
it's a 7-story building, pre-existing, has nothing to do with our project.
And nothing being built is going to, or proposed to be built, is going to.
It's going to further increase the shade that's already on that property.
Can I ask a question?
I'll allow it.
Okay, so the only place that it shows your building not being built is the top left in the winter?
Correct.
Okay, so so none of these that show the building in different other months are compared to that same building in that same month without your building, that same area?
You can compare it by looking at where it's being shown relative.
Yeah, but
This is
so is-
creating the most adverse
Yeah,
effect on the neighbor.
That's the only picture without your building. All these other pictures have your building in place. So the only time you show the area without the building, your building, is the winter, when there's less sun and the sun's lower anyway.
There's not less sun when you see the sun shading. It's casting the
It's
shade.
winter. It's
It-
winter,
Okay.
the sun is lower. There's no
All right.
comparison on the other.
Can I ask a
side.
question? Yeah. Is the reason why you use the winter in the morning as the control essentially? Is that because you believe that's the most shade?
We use that because there was speculation as if there was no shade being casted on that property, and that property had no adverse effect already.
Yeah.
It's important, well, the letters,
Ma'am,
it's not an
please.
interpretation. We went through a whole length of demonstrating that there is shade already being casted on that property should there never be a building built on this site. That's important to understand as a base and as a metric. And then to evaluate what a proposed building then does. We cannot ignore that it on its own is already confronted with adverse effects. We could show it for the winter and the summer and the fall and the spring. We already see in one example.
You haven't shown it.
You can clearly see in one example
Okay.
that it casts shade.
Ma'am, I have the floor. No more comments. Any more questions for?
I think you answered it because I believe that the 7-story Future Care building, the opposition has stated that that your building actually casts more shade on the property, or that the Future Care building is too far back. That is not a good example to use. But looking at this, it seems that the Future Care, the 7-story building, does cast enough shade already on the properties, and so with this, I think the rear addition will be 6 stories.
Mhm.
You guys said?
Yep.
So it will be a little lower than the Future Care building. What is your opinion on the relative closeness of the proposed addition compared to the Future Care building?
So Sandy just reminded me, the existing 7-story building is over 100 years old, sitting vacant with windows boarded up, and if there's an adverse building in Charles Village, it would be the one that's existing that we have no site control over. It doesn't belong to us.
Yeah.
And so in our
Ma'am, please.
meetings with the community, I think it was universally agreed to that our structure would actually enhance any of the traffic walking through from not seeing a basically 100-year-old building that's been sitting vacant, boarded up. We've had a hard time trying to get any cooperation out of them. So it would kind of block people from visually seeing it.
Aesthetically.
But I don't think, exactly.
Okay.
And, but there's nobody using it or in there that would be adversely affected by
I was more so worried about how it affects the shade, but I
Yeah.
think I have a good opinion.
I think there's.
Ma'am, you've spoken. You've had the opportunity. Well, you're not asking a question, you're making an argument.
May I ask a question of this witness?
You may ask one more question.
Okay. In terms of the building that you just referred to, We're not talking about the future care building
Right.
being vacant.
Right. The
Right?
7-story, yeah, Future Care is 1 story.
It's not
It's-
vacant. The building that you were referring to is on 29th and Charles. It's a clear 2 blocks north.
No.
What,
Okay.
future care is not
Talking about this
vacant.
building right here. This 7-story section of that building
Yeah.
is dilapidated and vacant.
Yeah.
The entire building is not vacant, but that portion that abuts
It's
that
future
neighbor's
care
property,
is currently occupied and running.
not this rear portion.
27.
Like I say, I'm not sure how relevant all this is. The facts are that there's a 75-foot tall building, which, based on the shade study, we started out with a 6-story building, approximately 65 feet. We reduced it at the communities just to address some concerns, to reduce that to 55 feet, which is what the conditional use is, to go from 45 to 55. And I, again, reiterate the testimony that meets the variance standards, is a unique property. Certainly the availability and provision of more low-income housing units for the city of Baltimore and this neighborhood is important. And we would ask the board to approve the plans, the revised plans and the variances conditional use needed.
I just have one quick question about parking. How did you arrive at the determination that it wasn't being used in its current state?
On-site management, well, our site management, we've discovered that we've had more issues of outsiders parking on site that we've started enforcing and towing, and we've concluded that there wouldn't be a means for them to be parking there if other residents didn't have places to park. So it was basically turning into a community parking lot.
So the parking that's existing now is just kind of
Yeah.
first come, first served? It's
Yeah,
not
yeah,
permitted parking or anything? Okay.
Most of the residents that we currently serve are primarily depending on public transportation. Yeah.
I have another question for you, for the developer. The existing 22 units, I believe your testimony was that to rehabilitate the existing 22 units to bring them up to HUD code or HUD, regulations, so you could actually, in the future, perhaps get credits or get funding. The cost will be prohibitive to just rehabilitate those 22 units alone. Do you have any numbers of what the cost would be?
Yeah.
Of doing those?
So we had a preliminary conversation with the state to see what their take was on the project. And we provided them with a 202 form, which spells out the rehab construction cost. And based on our preliminary conversations, it was roughly a $9 million cost basis.
Mhm.
So that would be inclusive of the new 38 units plus, in essence, gut renovating the existing 22.
Okay,
But what's the cost of
So about
just renovating the
135,000
existing
per
22?
unit.
just the 22. No,
Just the 22
I want to
would-
compare just the 22 versus the
Well,
cost of
we
just doing all
didn't-
the 60 together. So
There's no current way for us to out-of-pocket rehab the units. I mean, I can give you a ballpark figure of $35,000 is what it generally costs to gut renovate a unit today. We're not budgeting that out because it's simply, nobody's giving us the money to do it.
Right.
The units that we're currently renting at
Because they're affordable.
$850 to $950 a month,
It just
there's
doesn't
just
make
no way
sense.
to slice it. So,
Okay.
if there was a source of funding that made $35,000 a unit available,
Yeah.
sure, we
Yeah,
would
let's
do
have
that,
a-
but there
There's no
is no way.
benefactor out
And so
there.
then you could say, well, why don't you just do the tax credit project on the 22 units?
Right.
So the answer is $1 million of tax credit basis is not enough to support the cost of going through a tax credit deal.
Yeah.
Getting tax exempt bond financing.
So it's your opinion, it's your testimony that going out to get financing for just the 22 alone.
Impossible.
Yeah.
So
okay.
we work with Cohn Resnick, who completes all our audits for the state. They looked at it too, just from, strictly their knowledge, experience, and understanding of the costs associated with the 4% tax credit syndication, and the costs are too prohibitive.
Okay.
You would end up with more costs than you would in
Right. And they'll have to be
$40,000 a year in tax
and
credit.
they have to be affordable units. So
Yeah.
you can't make a market.
Well,
You could, but then you
exactly.
would lose
Then
the
the 22
affordable
units that are there would be misplaced,
Mm-hmm.
and part of the issue not issue, but my commitment to the state when I bought the project was we weren't going to move people out. And so, believe it or not, we have people that pay $650 a month. Somebody who's there for 25 years and has nowhere to move, we're not going to move them out. We do have people that are taking advantage of it.
Yeah.
And so those people do get processed out, but we have somebody who's been there for 20 years.
Do you have an idea of how many affordable units are in Charles Village right now?
I don't have that number off the top of my head.
Okay. I don't have any more questions.
Okay. Anybody else?
Everybody good?
I'm good.
All right.
Thank you very much for
Thank
your
you.
time.
Yeah.
Do you need their spelling of their names?
Is what it is.
Okay, so in addition to the 2 variances then, there's also a height conditional use that was not on in your memo that we need to consider. I have the variance standards pulled up in case you want me to go through them. Generally, we start with uniqueness and then go to practical difficulty if you find uniqueness.
In light of the testimony presented, I'm not going to repeat it all, but what was on the record by Mr. Berry, and particularly in his rebuttal, with regard to the uniqueness of the property, that, and we heard extensive testimony that this project is not being put forth solely to increase the value or profit to the project or to the owner of the project. There is an impediment for housing of this type. It's been demonstrated that this kind of housing is needed. It is cost prohibitive to solely rehab and bring up to ADA compliance and various other federal regulations on just the 22 units. There's not enough cost. There's nobody to provide the money to do that. Go ahead with the other standards.
I'd like to add also that the project, as described, certainly not contrary to public interest. In fact, generally benefits that neighborhood, I think the city as a whole. And the requirements of the code do place a practical difficulty on the project.
Anything else on the variances?
No?
I think that about covers it, really. Just the one statement.
And the conditional use too, which is the standard that basically says that it's presumed to be approvable, but the board would have to find that there was some kind of specific harm here from the height as opposed to other places. So I think I hear Bill saying that that he would approve the conditional use as well under the conditional use standard.
Yeah, I think the conditional use standards are met. Again, I've noted the opposition, looked through the letters. I am so persuaded by the Sun study. We don't have a contrary, expert report or presentation presented. And so, based on the evidence in the record, I find that the conditional use standards are met.
I agree for all the previous stated reasons.
Agreed.
Okay.
So I'm a yes.
I'm a yes.
I'm a yes.
I'm a yes.
Sabrina's not allowed to vote because she was not here. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
The only one I missed?
Okay. Calling case number 2022-208, 25 North Chester. East Wing Architects is the appellant. And this matter seeks to renovate the building to be a multifamily property up to 3 units with ground floor commercial space. Is that correct, Mr. Prettle?
It is. It has been amended to reduce the request to 2 dwelling units.
2 dwelling units. Okay. 2 DUs. All right. We need to swear, Mr. Prettle? Yep.
You swear or affirm under the penalty of perjury that the answers that you give and the statements that you make will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Can you state your name also?
My name is Nate Last name's Prettel, P-R-E-T-L. Thank you.
All right, I'll hear from staff and planning.
Sure. So there's a conditional use being requested, neighborhood commercial retail on the ground floor. There's also a multifamily dwelling being requested, which we've had discussion about in the past on at least one occasion. The last legal use at this property is a single-family dwelling with retail grocery store on the first floor. There's historical evidence of former use as 2 dwelling units, but it was reduced to 1 dwelling unit according to the information that we have in our files. There's also a letter in opposition in your packet, and I will leave it there.
Planning Department has reviewed this application. As indicated also by your staff, the records available to the Planning Department state that the property was last authorized for use as a single-family dwelling and as commercial use on the ground floor or street level of the building. The issue that the department is concerned about is that the zoning code does not allow residential conversions to be approved by the board in the R8 zoning district where this property is located. It must be approved by ordinance of the mayor and city council. Therefore, the portion of the application that calls for creating a multifamily dwelling on the premises would not be something that, in the opinion of the department, could be approved by this board. The department has no objection to the approval of commercial use of the property, as this could qualify for neighborhood commercial establishment use, and the building and the site are appropriate for neighborhood commercial establishments. The department therefore recommends disapproval of the portion of the application relating to conversion of the premises from a single-family dwelling to a multifamily dwelling, because the zoning code does not authorize the board to approve conversion of a single-family dwelling to a multifamily dwelling in the R8 zoning district where the property is located. The department is unable to recommend approval of the non-residential use of the ground floor of the premises, as the applicant has not provided information about the exact commercial use that would be made of this portion of the premises, although the structure's record of non-residential use makes it eligible for consideration for a neighborhood commercial establishment use. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. French. Okay, Mr. Prettel, let's take the issue of the conversion.
Sure. And just to be clear, in June, we had a full hearing on this, and I provided ample testimony regarding, my opinion, why the conversion standard does not apply. I think I provided testimony to the variance standards as well as to the conditional use being requested. And I do have a question for planning. I think they recommended both approval and disapproval of the first floor commercial in their staff report. And I think your file includes written testimony that this will be a grocery store, the same type of store that has been there since the building was constructed in, I believe, the late 1800s. I was not aware of a letter of opposition either. When we were here last month, we had a member of the Butchers Hill Community Association's board and land use, I think the chair of the land use committee, and we had agreed to certain conditions for the support of the Butchers Hill Community Association, which at the time we requested that should the board approve this application, they make those conditions a part of that approval should it be granted. They had to do with some exterior design comments that we are amenable to. And Mrs. Witt, is that still in your file?
I don't know that I have proposed conditions in my file. I'm happy, if you want to submit them as
Sure.
part of
Well,
the
I think
record.
they were submitted in person and via email by
Okay.
Mr. Virgil Bartram. And I know that you were not the executive director at the time. So
I'm
there's-
still not,
Okay.
but I might be on Monday. No, I don't have a copy of them, but we can make them
Okay.
part of the record if the board approves
Sure.
the multifamily.
And I just want to be clear that the applicant, on behalf of the applicant, we are amenable to those conditions. Like one of them was having brick siding. And so, Mr. Chairman, my question is, how much of the prior testimony would you like me to sort of restate? Or I believe when we left off, there was some discussion about this letter from the zoning administrator. I think the hearing had basically concluded, and at the last minute, this letter came up, and there were some questions. Say, well, what do we do with this this letter having the zoning administrator speaking about going to the city council. And was my understanding, I'm happy to speak to anything the board should want to have additional information on, but it was my understanding that primarily I was going to provide a little bit of context, and I've since had a conversation with Mr. Veal about this. And if I may, do you want me to go ahead and start with that?
Go ahead and do that.
Sure.
Thank you.
So this letter, and I apologize, I only have one copy. I believe this is in your file. It speaks to the conditional use, conversion going to the city council. And I did speak with Mr. Veal and, had his consent to sort of paraphrase our lengthy conversation about this. And for the hearing, the most important thing is Mr. Veal is clear that this is not an opinion letter that says this must go to the city council. I think his exact words were, Nate, tell me where this says you have to go to the city council in it. And it was my opinion that it does not either. What this was a requirement of the zoning code should an applicant request an ordinance be introduced to the city council. The council cannot introduce a conditional use conversion bill without this letter. And if you look to the bottom of the letter, it says this is per zoning code. And I don't have it in front of me now, but references several sections of the code. And so this is written.
Subsections 5201 and 5303 of the zoning code.
Correct. Correct. And I want to also be clear that this does not, certainly does not prohibit or say that, no, this can't go to the city council. And Mr. Veal's point is that, this is not saying the zoning board does not have the authority. This is not saying that this is absolutely a conditional use conversion. This letter came about after a meeting that one of the property owners, Greg Carpentier, who owns the property with two of his brothers, had with Mr. Veal in February. And so then this letter, and at the time he said, well, you can either go to the zoning board and see if they will accept it, or you could make it in some ways easier and just go to, because we know the city council has the authority. At the time, Mr. Veal communicated they did not have, had not reviewed the records that showed this as a 2-unit property, or had not reviewed the historical documents showing this property was built as a commercial property with 2 units on top. In the previous hearing, I testified sort of at length about how I believe this cannot be a conditional use conversion because of the conversion standards that must apply to any conditional use conversion. And one of those being any conditional use conversion, post-conversion, must revert to its original residential character. This building was constructed, and I provided testimony, I think, with some newspaper articles going back to the early 1900s, showing this was a butcher shop in Butcher's Hill. And so this never had residential character. And that's one of the primary reasons I believe this does not apply as a conversion. And also, and I'll reiterate some of the prior testimony, the intent of the conditional use conversion of a single family was to give additional review, an additional review process for what they would call chopping up row houses. That was the intent, and the city council, the way that the bill was, or the provision ultimately ended up in the zoning code, is very ambiguous and does not read that way. And I think even in the staff report here, we referred to this both as a single family dwelling with a commercial on the first floor and as separately as a reduction from 2 units to 1 dwelling unit. I think that's where this is. Sure, there may be a single family dwelling in it, but is it, or is it 1 dwelling unit and 2 dwelling units? The term single-family dwelling has always, in my opinion, and in their practice through the various city agencies, particularly HCD, referred to the entire property, not a piece of it. If you want to call 1 dwelling unit a single-family dwelling, this would have been built as a commercial with 2 single-family dwellings in it. An apartment building would be 40 single-family dwellings. That's not the case here. And I think to apply the conditional use conversion standards to a building that in almost any way you look at it does not meet the conversion standards put into the code would be a mistake. And I certainly agree with the board staff that the city council needs to fix this, because this is not the way to approach these things on sort of a case-by-case, historical research, and but it's unfortunate that we are here. I would urge the city council to amend this, particularly to clarify, if not to change the process, at least to clarify the conditional use conversion. But I do urge the board to approve this application. I provided testimony regarding both the variance standards as well as the conditional use neighborhood commercial for the grocery store on the first floor. And I'd say we do have community support. I was unaware. The last time we were here, there was no opposition. We did have the community support letter subject to those conditions, which we're amenable to. And I'll just in my conversation with Mr. Veal, sort of he ended with a sort of a hypothetical, looking at this building, with sort of different bulk and yard, details, and saying, so Nate, you have a non-conforming use here on the first floor. I'm making a request here for a conditional, but the way it is, a non-conforming use with an apartment on top. So should we convert that non-conforming use to another apartment? Multifamily is permitted in R8 zoning district. Say we met the off-street parking, we met the lot size. We would have a situation where we're going from a non-conforming use to a conforming use. He said, Nate, would you send that to City Council? Something going from a non-conforming to a conforming use? And my opinion would be no. And so I think that's helpful to understand the situation we're in now. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions from Mr. Breno? No.
No?
Oh, I think it's very clear.
Okay, Mr. Breno, thank you for your
Thank you.
presentation, sir. The issue is I'm trying to recall the evidence that he brought.
All right, so we're at conditional use for the neighborhood commercial retail use on the first floor. And then if the board wanted to approve the multifamily use, there would be lot area variance required for that.
Okay.
And if you have questions for me, please ask
I was gonna say,
them.
what's our opinion on this? Again, the single family conversion is a city council issue. That's our stance.
So here's what dwelling single family is defined as. It means a dwelling that contains one dwelling unit. So the way that Katie and I have talked about this, the property is a dwelling, it has one dwelling unit in it, it's a single family dwelling. If the city council wants to define single family dwelling differently in the future, that would include a property, or exclude this kind of property, because there's commercial also, they could do that in the future, but we're just trying to read the code in the most straightforward way possible.
I agree with that, as you well know.
I think it's missing the word only, depending on how you look at it.
Yeah.
It says, single-family dwelling means a dwelling that contains only one dwelling unit.
Okay, or the word only is there, one of the two. It's the only is the, wait, you
Right.
said it's a single-family dwelling contains only one dwelling unit?
Yes.
So this doesn't contain only one dwelling unit?
It currently has one dwelling unit.
There's
That's
only
the
one
current use
dwelling
permit.
But that's not all that it has. I guess it's how you
It's how you,
interpret the word only. Colin Martin?
I just wanted to quote also from the definitions in the zoning code, section 13-305L. Dwelling means a building or part of a building used for residential occupancy. I think the council made it pretty clear that in a situation like this, you can have a building used for more than one purpose.
That was the intent of the code as it was developed. I was there.
Legislative intent right here.
So, if we're just considering the dwelling, we're considering it's a single family dwelling. It was two in the past, but its last legal use was one. Gotcha.
I mean, not to confuse everyone, but the last part of what Nate said, the board has said that if there is a commercial use on the first floor, that you could replace that with a dwelling unit and have that not be a conversion. It's turning a non-conforming use, in this case, into a conforming use, which is multifamily, which is what Nate said. But that's not the application you have before you. You have a retail sales use on the first floor and one dwelling unit, or sorry, they're asking for two dwelling units above. Currently, there's one. So that is something that the board could consider if that application were presented to you, but it's not before you right now.
Okay.
That was helpful.
I think we have a single-family
Yeah.
dwelling
Yeah.
that can't be converted to multifamily.
That's my opinion.
I think that's where the record is. And so, we deny that use or that conversion,
We can't even take it up.
we can't take it up. I mean, say there's no... The board can't approve that. I don't think we have the ability to approve multifamily
Okay. So that sounds, I want to hear from everyone to make sure that the board is saying no to the multifamily.
I'm a no.
I think our hands are tied.
For the original.
Okay.
I think our hands are tied. I'm a no.
Okay.
I bet you can't guess. No.
Need answers, Sabrina.
I know, we need an answer, I know. I don't think it's super clear enough to me, but if the intent was for structures like this to be considered single-family, then I'm a no. I don't know if I agree entirely with that premise, but if that is the going idea, then I'm a no.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So then moving on to the conditional use, neighborhood commercial, retail on the first floor.
Well, if the evidence is that this was previously used as a grocery store at some point,
Yeah.
Historically, it was a butcher shop, so, I mean.
then I think we have enough information to say that that's approvable.
I agree.
I agree. I approve the neighborhood commercial use.
I'm a yes.
Okay, so that sounds like 4 yes for the retail and 4 sort of no's on the multifamily. Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I'm actually, yeah, I was there, I was right. I know why.
No, I was not.
City gotta clean it up.
Yeah, we did, we definitely did.
Yeah.
Or it's in opposite order. Didn't we just do Chester? Yeah, it's in opposite order.
So, calling case of 2022-164, 1621 Lancaster Street, Michael Snidel. Do we have opposition to this?
Yes.
Okay, everybody could come up. Mr. Snidel?
Yes,
Where are you?
All right.
This matter seeks to create a parking pad in the rear yard, is that correct?
that is correct, yes.
Could we swear the witnesses? please?
Sorry.
Do you swear or affirm under the penalty of perjury that the answers that you give and the statements that you make will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
All right. I'll hear from staff and planning.
Okay, so there are 2 variances here. One is a minimum rear yard setback, 20 feet required, 12 feet proposed, so it's an 8-foot variance requested. And a second variance for minimum size for off-street parking space. 18-foot depth is required and 14 feet exists, so it's a 4-foot variance requested.
Planning Department reviewed this application, noted that this property is located in the Fells Point Historic District. The applicant has proceeded to the Commission for Historical and Architectural Preservation, and staff has provided an authorization to proceed for the proposed curb cut, 10 feet long, along Bethel Street, which is the side street to this property, which meets at 1621 Lancaster. The issue at hand, in the department's opinion, is that although the site plan that was accompanying the application showed an existing parking pad in the rear, this particular property has a rear yard which can be paved and used for parking that measures approximately 16 feet by 13 feet. And the zoning code requires a parking space to be 9 feet by 18 feet. And the department had conversations with the applicant concerning this issue and suggested if there was any way geometrically to devise a way to fit a 9 by 18 foot space into a 16 by 13 rectangle, that the applicant would be welcome to submit a plan showing that. We have not received such a plan since that time. This is the fundamental problem with this application, that it is proposing the board approve something as a parking space which does not meet zoning code requirements for a parking space in dimensions. And this is an issue because use of parking spaces that are less than the minimum dimensions in the zoning code often leads to vehicles being parked with portions of the vehicle in the public right-of-way. and Bethel Street is a narrow street, and obstruction of the public right-of-way by private vehicles is something that the department is not in favor of. Therefore, the department recommends disapproval of the application for a new parking pad or parking space in the rear yard because the zoning code does not authorize reduction of off-street parking space dimensions, as are stated in Table 16-402 of the zoning code, and the rear yard is of insufficient size to allow a diagonal parking space meeting zoning code standards of being 9 feet wide by 18 feet deep. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. French.
Excuse me, does anybody have a pen I could borrow? This one just bit the dust.
I do. You know I have a whole thing of them. Always do.
All right.
Thank you, excuse me.
So, Mr. Snyder, what say you in response to where planning is, and with regard to, I guess, the minimum code requirement of the dimensions of a bona fide parking space?
Well, sure. So I think my short answer is I think that the Department of Planning has recommended disapproval based on the hard 18 by 9 dimension standard. But at the same time, we believe, and I have talked to Martin at length, that they actually have provided a path for a variance, so to speak, that is workable.
Okay.
And that is they have specifically suggested in their response that an approval of this application would need to be conditioned upon maintaining a closed rear gate along the Bethel Street side of the rear yard, with no part of the gate protruding over to the public right-of-way. To be frank here on this point, our house has been broken into twice in Fells Point, and we absolutely would accept that condition to make this variance possible, and we plan on maintaining that gate regardless.
So you're saying, you could have a parking pad there when the gate would close, and nothing would be protruding onto the public right-of-way?
That is correct, yeah. And if you take the measurements, which are actually on the depth is about 15.3, I believe, and 14 on the width, there are a host of vehicles, small and moderately sized, that can fit a family. We desire this space, or really we need this space because of a practical difficulty of loading both a 5-month-old infant we have and aging grandparents in the space. It is completely feasible to have a 4-doored vehicle, especially with the new fleet of vehicles that is coming out. This is becoming increasingly easier to do. That could load into this parking space, allow us to unload both these new members of our family and these older members of our family into the space without intruding onto the public right-of-way at all.
Grandparents are living with you?
They are not living with us at the moment, but we are hoping they will soon.
Okay.
Oh, I just wanted to add, oh, sorry, go ahead. I'll keep this for the opposition side.
I'd also be happy to reflect on the 2 letters of opposition unless that starts there.
Okay. What do you need to add something for us to consider?
Oh, sorry, somebody just dropped off a letter of opposition, so I just wanted to make sure the board had it for their file. I guess I could do that now.
Yeah, go ahead.
Now that I made a fuss.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So these letters have to be in by the certain
Noon, yes.
time certain?
We allow people to submit things at the hearing as well. And I'll give you a copy, Michael.
So, Mr. Snell, you have the curb cut permission already, right?
No, so our understanding is that DOT is open to providing the curb cut permission as long as the variance is approved.
Okay.
Well, I think we have a situation. Well, let's ask Ms. Witt. Given where planning is on what their code requirements are for a parking space, what provision does the code provide or for the zoning board to, I can see where that could go. Anything less than what is deemed a official city-sanctioned parking space I mean, we
Yeah,
might get in a
so-
position of, you know, making parking spaces for go-karts and various other things as it gets smaller and smaller. Gotta be
Right.
a standard somewhere.
Right. I mean, I guess what I would say is, I'm just going back to the definition of variance. The purpose of the variance procedure is to afford a property owner relief from certain regulations of the zoning code, and then the variance procedure applies to only changes in bulk and yard regulations and to changes in signage, parking, and loading requirements. It does not apply to changes in the use, maximum quantity of signs, location requirement of signs, or the types of signs allowed. So I think that with many things in the zoning code, I don't know if there's a clear answer one way or the other, unless Mr. French disagrees, which he may. I think he does, maybe. So it seems as though the variance procedure could arguably apply to this. Obviously, every time they would need to come back to you for approval if other people wanted a similar variance.
Like, you can have a parking pad and never park in it. Like, I have a garage in my house, it's too small for my car, it's still called a garage even though it's a glorified storage facility. So I think that these applicants are being candid in that they want to put a car in it, but they could put bikes in it with a gate. Is that true or false? I mean, I could just call it a pad. Martin, you're looking at me. I'm looking at you.
Okay. The planning department's position in this matter is that the zoning code does not explicitly authorize reduction of dimensions of parking spaces.
Okay.
And this is a citywide issue, because obviously every time a developer comes in and proposes parking spaces off-street, we routinely receive requests to reduce the dimensions, either to 8.5 by something or to 9 by 16 or whatever. And the department has taken the position consistently over the years that the mayor and city council in the zoning code established the dimensions that are required for a parking space to be considered counted towards the off-street parking requirements in the zoning code. And therefore, the department has opposed any reduction on an informal basis or a non-legislative basis of the 9 by 18 foot dimension standard.
But these applicants are not asking for a parking variance, right? So they're not trying to...
They're not directly asking for a parking variance, but in order to consider a 16 by 13 foot space in the rear yard as a parking space,
Sure.
off-street parking space as defined in the zoning code, the board would have to determine that 9 foot by 18 foot no longer is required.
What if they amended their application to say, I want to put concrete in my backyard? So that I can drive my motorcycle?
We quite frankly did discuss this, Mr. Snidel and I.
Okay.
And the question was, if they removed the reference to using it as a parking space, then that would probably satisfy the zoning code. But his problem is that in order to get the Department of Transportation to approve the curb cut, and they get the final say
What
on the
about
curb cut.
motorcycles? What if it's motorcycle parking?
Bicycle parking is in the zoning code. Motorcycle parking, I'm not sure if that's in the zoning code at this moment.
Okay, these are all hypothetical.
Yes, we understand.
Martin, you said I'm looking at your memo language, approval should be conditioned upon maintaining a closed rear gate. Do you think DOT would approve a curb cut then?
I cannot speak for DOT, and I would not dare in this situation, quite honestly.
So with the gate that you said, that the gate would, well, that doesn't get around the zoning board going around the size of what a parking spot is, right?
I think that's where we are.
Unfortunately, in our opinion, no.
Okay.
I can speak informally to my conversations with DOT, which is, yes, if there was a variance granted here with a condition that we had to have a closed gate at all times behind the car, DOT would permit the curb cut.
So if we hypothetically, and we have not heard the opposition yet, I'm just curious, if hypothetically, if we approve it with the condition that the gate must be closed, does that mean we are as a board redefining what the size of a parking spot is, or are we granting this one appeal based on a condition for a gate?
I think
We're not redefining it because it's in the code.
I would invite the board to think back a few meetings. There was an appeal for a front yard parking space to be approved, and there was a curb cut issue with that particular application. And the determination of DOT at that time was we would not approve a curb cut that does not lead to what can be recognized by the city of Baltimore through the zoning code or otherwise as a legitimate off-street parking space.
So we gotta be consistent.
And there's no compact car. Yeah, that doesn't exist yet.
That has been brought up many times in the past few years, but so far there's been no action to create a compact or lesser parking space dimension.
Can I just add that this, the way I see it is a quite unique property that wouldn't even translate very well to other properties in the neighborhood. We're talking about a corner property that happens to sit against a alley street that does not allow parking on it, that also has a rear patio over 200 square feet in the heart of Fells Point. I actually know of only one other property that meets that criteria from my knowledge of the neighborhood, and it itself has a parking pad and a curb cut. I don't know if it was allowed by this board or not, but it exists, and it exists right behind us at 1618 Shakespeare Street.
So literally, the house behind you has what you want?
Exactly, and it is a smaller lot size than ours.
Wonder how that happened.
Put us in a...
That'd be helpful to know.
Oh, we hear the opposition.
Yeah, let's hear the opposition, I suppose. You guys get the last word, so...
Wait, they haven't heard that.
I know, I was gonna say, is there anything else before we move to the... I'm gonna take James's words out of his mouth.
Do we get a word after the opposition or no?
Absolutely. Yes.
Get a last word.
We get a word after the opposition.
Sure.
Okay, yeah, no, we're fine for now then.
Okay, great. Sir, just state your name.
Charles Norton.
You know what? You're gonna need to move over in front of a microphone.
Charles Norton.
Mr. Morton?
I live at 1622 Shakespeare Street, diagonally across. Just some photographs.
Thanks.
Oh, shoot.
Sure. And the first photograph with the blue wall
Yes, sir.
is the back of the property of 1621 Lancaster. You can see the curb there. The second photograph is the bad weather photograph of the property 1618 Shakespeare Street and the wall.
The one with the decks?
Uh,
Yeah, the foggy one. Yeah,
Just
this
keep
one.
talking
The third photograph is a photograph of the two fences at 1618, 1621, 1618 Shakespeare, 1621 Lancaster. It is not the existing wall at 1618, because that's been changed in the last year and a half, 2 years. The top one on the top is my property, my wife and I. We have it 1622 Shakespeare Street. We have our property. Wanted to at least show you that because it looks like a garage, but it's actually our living room behind there.
It's a carriage house.
We've lived in the house for 42 years. We bought it from the city. We followed the historic guidelines, all the criteria there. Next photograph is just a photograph of Bethel Street, the 800 block. This happens to be a crab feast that we had for 25 years. Haven't had it the last few years because of the pandemic and price of crabs. But anyway, it's a really, really narrow street. There are houses, you can see on the right-hand side, two houses that face, and our entrance is not shown here, but the main entrance to our house is on Bethel Street also. So there's 3 properties that are facing Bethel Street. The last photograph is just the inside of our living room, which is directly behind the garage doors. Our concern has been multifaceted in that, I mentioned the first time we talked about it, that I was concerned about fumes from a vehicle, because my feeling is that in using the backyard for parking, you'd have to drive up the alleyway, stop the car, get out, open the gate, get back in the car, drive in, and then close the gate. And the reverse is just exactly the same. Problem is my bedroom windows. I have 3 bedroom windows right over where the car would stop to open the gate and close it. And our living room is on the first floor. We don't always, in the winter don't have the gate open, the door open very often, but we have windows on the inside, which we open up to let light and air in, not light so much, but ventilation in on the first floor. So fumes would be a real problem, because if we either go potential fumes into our bedroom, we couldn't open our windows, or if we wanted to open up our living room windows on the inside without the door slid across, because one door slides behind the other, we'd have problems with fumes there. The other thing is I don't think the board can say that a person who owns a property, current or future, has to have a car that, a certain type of car that's going to fit in there. I took, for example, and with a note that I sent in, I took the length of a Prius, which is kind of mid-range. If you took a Prius and went in to the property, you'd have, I'll say it this way, Priuses, you'd have a piece of paper folded in half. That's how much space you'd have in front of the car to the brick wall of a person's home who 8 inches away is part of their living space. You'd have that much space behind the car to the fence. That's not a lot. I can't judge driving in that kind of space. So I would think that what you'd need to have is a bumper stop, like a car pad stop, in the middle of or 3 feet back into the yard, so the car wouldn't come any closer than 5.5 inches. Now that's not the only car. There's a range of cars that could be used, but that's an average, and a Prius is not a really big car. But again, I just don't think the board can say, if you've got an 18-foot requirement, which would leave a reasonable amount of space, that the only person who can park there is going to be somebody who has a car that is considerably less. And which brings up the next concern. So again, we're a very, very tight, small group, small community, and we don't need motorcycles. Not that I have anything against motorcycles, but if a motorcycle fit in there, we'd have the noise. And motorcycles can be extremely loud, and 3 homes. And the neighbors at 1618 Shakespeare, they have a child too, several people with children. But they use their yard is not a parking pad.
How do motorcycle come into play?
Because it's smaller, it's a small enough car, it's a small enough vehicle that if it's approved by this board and by the city to allow for a parking pad, then you could park anything that would fit in there. which a motorcycle could fit, and that's a problem. That's a problem for noise, as well as the potential for pollution.
Do they have a motorcycle?
No, and I don't think.
Listen, oh, my hypothetical.
I don't get the
No,
But the point is,
I understand your point,
the
sir.
point is that if you approve it for a vehicle, for a parking pad, then anything can go in there. Anything that fit in there could go in.
I understand your point. It's like, not unlike one.
And having a bumper to stop a vehicle from hitting a wall, which is an 8-inch thick brick wall to the property, 1619 Lancaster, is not a lot of protection. I'm just really concerned about the noise, the potential fumes, and just physically what would be allowed, because you can't approve, in my mind, you can't approve, just say, you have to have a car. Yes, if you're going to park a car in there, it's going to have to be a certain length, but you're dictating to current, future owners that they have to have a this size car to be able to park there. But again, even further is if it's a motorcycle, we get woken up. We all get woken up with motorcycles constantly in Fells Point, out in the square, coming down Broadway.
Sure.
And if that ended up on Bethel Street because this board approved it,
I take your point, sir. I understand your point.
I have a question, sir. Sir, you
Sure.
said that 1618 Shakespeare, although it has a curb cut, you said your testimony is not being used as a parking pad?
it never has.
Never
I've lived in Fells Point for 42 years. 1981, we opened up a shop. We lived behind and above it. When I was there, I could show you one other photograph. I think I have it here. Well, this is the only one I have. It's a photograph of our carriage house,
Yeah.
which was used by the O'Bricky family for baking ovens and a carriage. The horses are 2 blocks away on Caroline Street. The photograph that's black and white is what it looked like when we bought the house. What you're seeing in the color photograph is what we have now, which is our home, our residence, and our living room right behind that door. And so anyway, the curb cut was for a storage shed that was there when we bought our house. Part of the city guidelines, and we all had guidelines at the time as to what we could and could not do. This is my only copy, it's an original copy of guidelines that were set up for our property, just at least on the front facade. They were required to take the shed away. They put the fence up, and we have photographs of the fence it's been. It was a corrugated metal storage shed, and I can tell you, and I have a lot of neighbors who will tell you, there has never, ever been a vehicle parked behind 1618 Shakespeare Street in, I'll initially say 42 years we've been there, but because the properties were sold by the city, condemned in 1967, and there was a renter in that property from 68 or 69 on, that there's never been a car parked in there for probably 50 years or 60 years.
Okay. All right, thank you for that information. Anything else from you, sir?
Can I respond to it?
Well,
I just want to be sure, are you finished?
Yes.
Okay, very well. Go ahead, sir. Mr. Meadow.
Before you start, I was reading this letter from Caruso paper, Bruce Fleming, who's the president. And I think he's saying that he owns 1618 Shakespeare. I mean Lancaster,
Lancaster.
1618 Shakespeare.
16.
So he was referencing what this, I don't,
He's referencing this property back here. This is our property, this is the 1618.
well, he was referencing that wall, I think, in between.
Yeah.
He said you were going to make,
Referencing this section of the wall.
Where this is actually balcony is 1616. It's a whole
Says he
property
owns the
over there.
wall.
It's not face Bethel.
I can,
yeah, I know.
I can
and
explain
he's-
that.
He said that,
Hold on one second.
he said that you intended to make alterations to the wall without his consent. What's the deal with that?
I have,
So this is the first receipt.
yeah, I have no intention to make alterations to any wall of his, or otherwise. We do have a planter, in the space, that would need to be moved, but it's a simple planter with a single.
It's not a fixture.
Yeah.
I can explain for everybody, the wall that's partially blue is what is owned by 1614 Lancaster, because there's a right of egress through part of the yard of 1618 Shakespeare. So he's, I haven't seen anything in the plans saying anything about altering the wall.
Yeah.
But, so the blue wall is the wall he's talking about. But again, I haven't seen anything in your plans saying that. And it's not something that we had brought up. I know he's concerned, it sounds like he's concerned about it.
Yeah, we have no,
Thank you for that clarification.
Okay.
Mr. Slidell?
After you've been there for 40 years, you know.
we have no plans or intentions to alter a wall, and I'll have to go through this letter because we haven't seen it yet. I did have time to go through Charlie's letter and talk to him, and I appreciate having this time with here to discuss these things. I want to just go through a couple of these in order. You know, the first is the issue of air pollution. Fells Point has air pollution. It has air pollution with or without us. I don't see any strong argument for us having a car park in this space that would increase local particulate matter, particularly towards this neighbor's apartment. In fact, the closest bedroom to this parking pad would be the bedroom of our 5-month-old infant by far. We would take that very seriously if we thought particulate matter from an automobile would be a concern whatsoever. You know, Bethel allows cars to go down it. The other street, Shakespeare, that our neighbor sits on, allows cars to go down it. Particulate matter from cars is in the air. We have had we have several letters of support from other neighbors who are closer with windows open, who have no objection or concern about this issue. And actually, if anything, we think the alternative, that without the variance, the place we're in now, whereas we do have to unload, we're basically illegally parking a vehicle on Bethel Street, double parking the vehicle, blocking traffic, idling is a space we're actually most likely to put fumes into our neighbor's household. The second issue is noise pollution. You know, all I can say is we plan to be a motorcyclist family, and I don't plan to purchase a motorcycle. Christina doesn't plan to purchase a motorcycle. I am not an expert on this, but to my knowledge, nothing right now would stop me from putting a motorcycle, certainly from a code enforcement standpoint, in this space and cranking it if I wanted to. We do have an issue with motorcycles in Fells Point, but we are not that issue, and I hope that you and I can work on the issue together.
I apologize for my hypothetical.
You know, the next issue that was brought up was the tightness of Bethel Street. I agree, Bethel Street is a reasonably narrow street, although actually if you measure the distance with cars parked on Lancaster and Shakespeare, the turning radius is actually greater on Bethel Street than you have on the two perpendicular streets. I have provided a couple pictures here, just so you can see that there are curb cuts and driveways up and down the 700 and 800 block of Bethel Street. So these exist, they do not affect the tightness of the street. Thanks. To my knowledge, the functions fine without them. The next point of concern that was brought up in the opposition was the length of the car. Again, it is absolutely true that some cars would not fit in this space. That's why we would be completely okay. Oh, I'm sorry. That's why we would be completely okay with a condition that required us to have a closed gate behind this. Again, that's true even of the 18-foot requirement. I could find a truck that could surpass 18 feet and stick it out the back. So we think the gate assuages that issue. The final point I'll make is there was a point made by my neighbor here that, to their knowledge, that space behind us that does have an existing curb cut and parking pad has not been used by a car. I can tell you, my wife and I considered buying that house, and when we went to go buy it, there was a Mini Cooper parked in it. So perhaps that was for presentation, and perhaps it slid by the neighbor, but certainly we have actually been witness to a car in that spot within the last 2 years. And I remember particularly noting that it fit well, and it was part of our reason about being excited about the spot for ourselves.
All right. Any questions for Mr. Snyder?
Could I just say something? These are photographs that I've not seen. And just to let you know, where you have the, I'll start here at the right side. That's up on Bethel Street. It is more than 18 feet. It's considerably more. And you can see by the size of the cars and the curb, it is houses that are set back, that are total different configuration. The second one with the blue door is more than 18 feet deep because it's the front of a house. It's a garage door that lifts up. And so there's no comparison there. The third one is at, I believe it is Alisana and Bethel Street. And it's an entrance into 5 houses long that the gate goes up, you can drive in, and you drive underneath the houses that are facing on Alisana Street. So again, there's no comparison. Second one is a car pad on a property at the corner of Lancaster and Bethel. And it's a setback property, and it is deeper again. And then the first one is the fence that is at 1618, the current one, which, again, if a car could fit in there, it would have to be a Mini Cooper, something like that, which she did own.
Sounds like it was. Okay.
But the point is that has never been permitted.
Understood.
Allowed. It's a child's yard right now, and there is.
Well, in any event, it doesn't look like
my bedroom. I have 3 windows that look right out.
Yeah.
I have a shop that I'm in. My wife and I are in 11 to 7 every 5 days a week. I have never ever seen a car there.
Okay.
So maybe I haven't missed one, but
No,
it'd be pretty hard for us to miss.
testimony, sir.
Plus, we walk out of our kitchen is directly across from the gate at 1618.
Understood. Mr. Snyder, you do have the final word. I know gentlemen wanted to it'd be helpful to provide some context with regard to these photos. Is there anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, I think our final word is, this is a practical hardship for us. The way our home was excavated to allow for a larger basement, I think about 20 years ago, has our first, if you look at the second picture, actually, on that set of pictures, has our first floor higher than most first floors in Fells Point. So it does create just a practical hardship for us to bring in both a newborn and elderly parents into the front and side of the house. This Bethel Street parking pad would allow us to deal with that practical hardship, and we believe it is in the spirit of Baltimore City's curb cut policy. We believe it is in the spirit of the city's master plan, which might define us as choice residents. We are not here for work. We're here for the unique neighborhoods and neighbors and cultural amenities of the neighborhood, and this is a way to help retain us to stay and grow and build a family. And then we think it's, in the general goals of the parking goals of the city, which is to create a public parking amenity by taking one more car off the street and putting it into a private path, especially in a dense residential neighborhood like Fells Point, where parking can be so restrictive and hard.
Thank you, sir.
Do you presently have a residential parking sticker?
We do.
Thank you for your presentation.
Ma'am. Same last.
No. I can show you her name if you want the whole thing.
No.
If you ever need them, I have them, almost them all. Oh.
I think this is easy.
I need to stretch, I'm just coming.
Okay. Cool. So we've got two variances, rear yard setback and the proposed minimum size for this parking space. What are we thinking here?
Based on the record and the input from planning in the code, I don't believe we do have the authority to, if in granting this, we would de facto be stating that we will allow parking in a space that is a less of a dimension than the code requires as a parking space. I think that could lead to a whole lot of things, including motorcycle parking, go-kart, you know, anything like that. So there's a reason that there's a minimal standard for a parking space. It works in conjunction with DOT, you know, with regard to curb cuts. I take the evidence that Mr. Snidel provided that, you know, DOT told him that if you can close the gate, we can get you a curb cut. But that would leave the legacy of basically granting the creation of smaller than required parking spaces. So I don't believe we have the ability to do that.
I agree with the chairman, even though I certainly, I mean, I think.
I'd love to give it to him.
Yeah, they state a very compelling case. I certainly know how difficult it is with a kid and how difficult it could be with older folks, because I am one.
And I applaud the effort to create more space, more parking space on the street.
I have
But
a question.
I don't see that.
So I know that in the previous case, we talked about the definition of like single-family home.
Mhm.
And I know that there is a specific definition for parking spot. But I also know as a city resident that things that we call parking pads are not always used to park on. So is there a definition in the code of what a parking pad is? Because if there isn't, then we can make very clear that this is, if there's a way to say we can make a variance for a parking pad, but this isn't a parking spot. I don't know, that's just my,
There's-
is there a definition of parking?
No, so there's no definition of parking pad, there's only a definition of a parking space.
Okay, and they're not asking for a parking space. They're asking for a paved area in the backyard that we colloquially refer to as a parking pad.
Right, I think it goes back to, again, though, that DOT will grant a curb cut only that leads to a parking space. So we're being asked to approve a parking space.
But that,
Well,
we are?
I think we are because the witness testified that's what we're doing.
I mean,
If the city council wants to amend the law to create a compact parking space, they can do that. Maybe they should look into it. I don't know if it's our space though. I don't want to, you know, once you open that can of worms.
Well, that's a concern that I have. And again, we're dealing with code provisions and we're talking about a parking space. We're not talking about a storage lot or anything like that. I appreciated the evidence that came in regarding the sort of like situation of the neighbor that has the other parking pad. I think we got some testimony on how that was created. It appears that wasn't created by virtue of this process where you come and are seeking and testify that you're seeking to basically take a parking space off the street and, you know, create one that may be frankly, you know, more beneficial to everybody, but it doesn't meet the requirement. And we only have one requirement of parking dimensions in the code. And, you know, for that reason, I believe that we're not authorized to do it. So I'm a no.
Unfortunately, I agree.
Yeah, I'm also a no.
Unfortunately, I agree as well. I'm a no.
I disagree, I'm a yes.
Okay, so that sounds like 4-1.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Okay, calling case number 2022-223, 613 Parkworth Avenue, Juan Carlos Romero Alonso. And is there anyone here in opposition to this matter? No? All right. Are you Mr. Alonso?
Yes, my name is Juan Carlos Romero Alonso.
Okay. This is a request to install a roll-up metal gate 12 feet wide, 9 feet tall on the right side of the house?
Yes.
Okay. Could we swear the witnesses, please?
Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm under the penalty of perjury that the answers that you give and the statements that you make will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
I'll hear from staff and planning.
I'll let Mr. French go first, actually.
Thank you. Planning Department has reviewed this application, noted that this property is currently approved with a 2-story detached residential building, and it is zoned R5 in the Waverly community. The existing uses allowed that are not residential for a property such as this are limited to daycare centers, lodges or social clubs, and neighborhood commercial establishments. Other commercial uses and all industrial uses are not allowed, according to Table 9-301 in the zoning code. The last authorized use of the property is a multifamily dwelling. The ownership of the property is currently Romero Construction and Remodeling, LLC. And the department notes, for the benefit of all, that a contractor storage yard is a prohibited use in the R5 zoning district. The department therefore is questioning if the purpose of the proposed roll-up metal gate is to complete enclosure of a portion of this property for use as a contractor storage yard, then this application should be disapproved. And in line with that, there was a plan included with the application which showed that the roll-up metal gate would be part of an enclosure of the rear yard that would be made with an 8-foot tall fence surrounding the rear yard, which of course would require a height variance for the fence as well. There is no curb cut in front of this property at the present time. There is no driveway on this property at the present time. And therefore, approval of this application for what appears to be the purpose, which is an automotive vehicle entrance gate, would require prior approval by the Department of Transportation of a new curb cut, which you've just heard a lot about. To serve a new driveway that would lead to a new parking area in the side or the rear yard of the property. The department is therefore recommending disapproval of the application unless the applicant provides information showing that the portion of the property to be enclosed in part with the proposed roll-up metal gate will not be used for or as a contractor storage yard, and unless the applicant provides justification for a variance of the height limit for the fence to which the proposed gate would be attached. Thank you.
So the variance being requested here is a minimum interior side yard setback. 10 feet is required, 0 is proposed because it's right up on the lot line, so it's a 10-foot variance requested. I did want to mention for the board's understanding that there's no opposition in the file other than the planning department's opposition, and there are 4 letters of support from neighbors on Parkworth Avenue. And I'm happy to pass them down. They came in kind of late, I think, so I didn't have them in your packet. But they support the applicant, who has made a lot of improvements to the property, and that they believe he's acting in good faith. Another one in support. This person has 0 issue with the fence. The residents of this property have done amazing work with the restoration of the home. I can't wait to see how beautiful they make the home look. And the final property just says that they support it as well.
These are all neighbors?
These are all neighbors on the block, yes.
Thank you.
Before we get to you, sir, the definition, Mr. French, of the storage.
Let's see.
The zoning code in section 1-3040 defines contractor storage yard as land or structures used primarily for the storage of equipment, vehicles, machinery, building materials, paint, piping, or electrical components being used by the owner or occupant of the premises in the conduct of a building trade.
Thank you. So, Mr. Romero Alonso, tell us about your project and why are you doing this? Why do you want to do it?
Well, in the first time, we have the parking lot already. We have everything permit, and the parking lot and the curb cut, everything is on the permit. The fence is already on the permit, and it's already passed inspection and everything. I demoed the whole house and built a new house. That one is for my primary residence because we moving from Silver Spring to Baltimore, Maryland. So, and I built one shell in back, and I want to put this gate because sometimes we have a construction company and remodeling houses. Yeah, and right now we're trying to do in Baltimore is flipping the houses, and we have some furniture for staging the houses. As we have a truck or Benz, so we bring the furniture and put in the shelf, and this is for this purpose. I want to use this gate. Yeah, and I don't want to open the gates. I want to with the control remote, open the gate and put the furniture inside.
So you're living in the house?
Yes.
And you've built a shed that you're going to keep furniture in, and you just want a metal roll-up door for that shed?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, and we have 2 dogs, and I need the privacy for my little dogs.
Where's the shed? I can't discern from this.
In the back of the house, in the corner.
You said you demoed the whole house and built a whole new house? Okay. In the picture that's in your, is this the new one, or is this what was there when you bought it?
This is when we buy it.
So that's an old house, that house is gone now?
It's gone.
I send a new picture. You know how-
Tell me your name, ma'am.
Seawood, not us.
Sorry, Nelly Romero.
Nelly Romero?
Yeah.
Okay.
Here it is.
This is the, this is the new shell.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, this one, and this one is proposed to put the gate in here. Yeah,
Okay.
and this is the new parking lot in here. Yeah,
I gotcha.
So the shed, once again, I do have a photograph of your new house, I think. So the shed would go at the end of this paved
Yes.
area?
Mm-hmm.
How large is the shed?
10 by 16.
10 by 6.
And the gate would be on the shed, so it's,
Yeah, it's close to the shell. It's finish the parking lot and in here.
So the gate is,
Gotcha.
the gate is before.
Yes.
Does it roll to the side? It rolls to the side? Not up?
No, up.
Rolling up.
Not rolling up.
Rolling up.
It's like this one.
Oh, okay, I understand.
Yeah, I built this kind the doors in DC and trying to-
Can we see down here?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I gotta show them too.
Gentlemen.
Sorry.
Gate.
Okay.
okay.
That's a roll-up gate. That's how it will look.
This is the rolling gate.
I think you rehabbed the house here and built a villa.
Okay, what is the,
Definition of context.
Probably not.
you've indicated you would drive in a van with furniture? Is that what you said?
Because we do staging.
You do staging?
Yeah, we do remodeling houses, rebuilding, and selling. But we do staging for that properties before, so.
And that's what you're trying to store in that area?
Yeah, for there.
What's the, does it, and you're asking for 8 feet in height?
No, 12 feet.
It's 12 feet by 9 feet tall.
9 feet.
Mm-hmm.
What is the reason for the 9 feet?
For the big truck. It's, we have one Silverado, one Chevy Silverado, 2011, and
That's how tall it is.
3500 that is tall. This is why the 6 feet is too short. So if we have a little bit furniture in the top, is 8 feet,
It would take it off.
take it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is why. Mm-hmm.
So you are running a business out of the shed?
No.
Well, you're storing
It's only the
materials.
storage.
Materials for your
You're
business.
storing materials for your business
This.
in that location.
It's it's the furniture only.
That's operating a business.
Mr. French, given the definition that you.
First comment I'm going to make is I suspect that what you're seeing doesn't seem to match the plan that was attached to this application.
Okay.
So I think an updated plan would be very helpful to show the proper location of the new shed, the new house that you've built, and the proposed exact location of this gate. Because from the testimony I'm hearing, they don't seem to quite match up.
On page 5 of what we have, it seems drawn, the gate is not, it's not attached to the garage. It's next to the house at the end of the driveway.
Correct. That's the same thing we saw.
Yeah, I think that's what, is that what you all are saying?
Yeah.
Is that, yeah. Is that not what you, did I get it wrong?
Well, our concern is the practical effect of what was proposed on that site plan that was attached to the application is to create an enclosed yard with an 8-foot high fence around most of the rear yard, with a 9-foot tall gate leading into it. And functionally, it becomes a contractor's storage yard, in all likelihood, in an R5 zoning district that does not allow that type of a use. So that was the department's concern. And if the applicant can testify that it will not in fact be used that way, then the board is certainly free to proceed on that basis.
Do we have a definition from planning of what a contractor storage yard is?
Well, it's in the zoning code, and that was what I just read.
Yeah, so I can read it again real quick. It's land or structures used primarily for the storage of equipment, vehicles, machinery, building materials, paint, piping, or electrical components being used by the owner or occupant of the premises in the conduct of a building trade. So I think the question might be, does furniture fit within equipment, vehicles, machinery, building materials, paint, piping, or electrical components?
And also, would the space be primarily for furniture, or is that whole backyard space have, like, because the other word in there is primarily, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
What does the storage area look like now? I mean, is there a ceiling on it, or is it just open, and just gated?
It's a mini house.
It's a garage. It's a detached garage.
Oh, it's detached.
Yeah. And also, we're not planning to put anything in the back because it's our primary residence. It's a beautiful house.
Okay. So why do you need a gate around the storage unit?
In front.
It's in front, it's only for
Right.
the furniture because.
But the furniture is going in the garage, right? So then why do you need a gate in front of the garage?
It's for move my car more close to the shop. That's all.
Is
Okay.
this, looking at your drawing, is this the storage area you're talking about?
Yes.
All in the back corner there?
Yes.
And it doesn't seem like there's a driveway to get to that area, is there?
No.
The driveway ends at that pink line?
Yes.
Okay, so you want to back your Silverado up to that pink line, open a rolling gate,
Yeah.
and then carry the
I'll go
furniture to the back.
Yeah, but no other time, basically the.
For more.
Just basically the gate is for giving like privacy
Uh-huh.
and like using like backyard like family.
Can you use the microphone, please?
You're saying you would use the backyard like normal families use them?
Yeah, like families space.
The shed, though, you said the shed is used to store furniture that's used in the staging, I guess, of the houses you flip?
Yes.
Sounds like construction stuff to me.
It's a building, I mean,
Part of the business.
it is part of a business. So you open the gate. What is situated immediately on the other side of the gate? Is it part of your yard? And then the stuff that you brought in, you moved it all the way into that storage area? The shed?
Yeah, it's gonna be the just grass after
Let me ask you a follow-up question. Why a rolling gate like that and not just a regular fence?
All right, there you go.
We have already the regular fence.
Mhm.
It's already in the plans. It's already approved. But in the end, I want to try to decide to install the rolling gate.
Why though?
Why? Because I told you we had the big car, so I want to try to move the truck the more closer we can.
Oh, I understand. I understand that part, but I'm saying like if you had a regular just fence or gate that closed, you wouldn't even have to worry about a clearance at the top. You could just open the gate, or have it. You know, it could be motorized, but going this way, then you wouldn't have to worry about a certain height. I think that's what the industrial nature of the gate that you're asking for suggests that you mean to use this for your business purposes, and so I'm wondering why you picked a businessy kind of fence instead of a house kind of fence.
Well, we're coming from DC.
Sure.
And in DC, we install this kind of gate and looks good and looks better to the other gate.
So you like how it looks?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and this one cost me $10,000, and the other one is cost less of that. So this
Maybe it'll save you some money if you get a
Yeah,
regular
I know.
fence.
But we already have.
Do you intend to, okay, you got a big vehicle, and you got a big gate,
It's in DC, but it ain't
so the
DC.
vehicle can go under the gate, through the gate, whatever?
yes.
And so you intend to drive the vehicle back
No.
on this side of the gate? Then why
No.
do you need a gate that accommodates the vehicle? That you're not gonna drive on this side of the?
Yeah, it's for the bigger furniture. Yeah. If I can put a small door or I can put little gates, yeah. All the time I need to come down and move away, and all the time it's bended, and we have a lot of problems with this kind of the other doors. And with this one, it's only with the control remote, open the control remote, lift it up, and go inside.
Let me ask you another question. If you can't install this kind of gate, will you install another kind of gate and still be able to move your furniture
Yes.
into the garage? Okay.
Yeah. Yes, because we're deciding because it's easy to just get it, the control and then get.
Is it industrial though?
Yes.
For an 8-foot,
Yes.
The variance
Oh,
is
what
just
else
for
to
the
call
height
it?
of the fence, right?
well, it's for the height
And the type?
and, what is it?
Doesn't make
It's the
there's
two
no.
things. There's a height variance they're asking for 8 feet.
Because Forrest, they wanted to install a roll-up gate to enclose their parking pad.
That went to the side though, not to the top.
So it's a side yard setback.
James? I don't understand.
Oh, we shouldn't be even considering what kind of gate. It's just a side yard setback to install any type of gate.
Yeah, the fence is not part of this application.
It really is just-
It's
set-
just, it says install
What's that?
roll-up metal gate 12 feet wide and 9 feet tall on the right side of the house, and it's a setback, side yard setback.
So
Okay.
we can only consider that they want a yard setback to install a gate.
Right.
Right.
Oh.
But
That's
it
a
gives it
different-
dimensions on the gate.
Right.
Yeah, but that's not part of the variance though. The dimensions of the
Right.
gate are not part of the variance.
I think we got hung up on the
Yeah.
gate
Yeah.
because the type of gate is indicative of a different kind of use that's
Yes.
prohibited. That's
But in
that's
ask-
how we ended
But
up there.
In
yeah.
asking the appellant's questions, no matter what kind of gate they put on, they're still
Right.
gonna.
Business.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Right,
sorry.
we just need to
That's the question.
understand,
With his
we need
flipping
to,
business.
So no matter what kind of gate you put on, you're still gonna put your furniture in that back garage? Okay, I mean.
Yeah, it's already, the shed is already there, and it's already permit, and the fence is already permit. So we coming in here only for the gate.
yeah.
For the setback, for the yard.
Setback, yeah.
Yeah.
So us denying it won't stop what the planning's opposition is.
Well, their opposition is the use.
Right, but our denying this won't stop the
Right.
use, is what I'm saying.
Right.
For the benefit of the board, is it possible to ask if the applicant could be asked to produce copies of the permits for the curb cut and the driveway? Because they were not accessible to the planning department at the time we prepared our comments.
I already have my phone.
You have it on your phone?
Yeah.
Could you submit them to,
Becky, can she email them to you?
Yes.
Okay, man.
Are we going to postpone this one, or are we going to?
frankly, I'd I'd like to see the rest of that.
I would too.
So would I.
Maybe we can defer deliberation, but anything else we want to
Right.
see?
And then there's.
Basically, I really want to see whatever's on her phone because she has most of the information.
Yeah.
Everything.
Okay. I already have all
Oh,
these.
don't give it to me, but
No, but she only showed.
Oh, to make sure you're doing the right thing?
Well, what we're suggesting is that for the record, it needs to go to this width.
Oh, yeah.
This is for the
She's going to give you an email address.
Oh,
Send us more than you think is necessary, just to make sure we have everything.
okay.
I personally would also like to have more information on what this use is
On what the use
and how it ties into their flipping business.
Well, I think we'll probably be able to glean that from the permits and the applications for the permits.
If we can,
Yeah.
I still want to see.
So, photos or more testimony from these guys?
Both.
All right, we'll follow up to get all that information from the applicant
Okay.
and reschedule them as soon as we can.
That's fine.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. I think he rehabbed it, he didn't demolish it and build it.
Right.
It is, but nice.
I think there's no way that's a variance. We can use a denial of a variance to stop.
Okay,
And I don't think it should be our responsibility.
we're going to call case number 2022-2. Wait a minute. Is 229 still up? I have a note on here that says a postponement.
Yes.
Okay. 2022-229, 5503 Reisterstown Road. Kiana Davis, the appellant.
Do I have it?
Yeah, well, I don't know.
Is it in the email?
5503 Reisterstown.
5503.
So everyone here in support and in opposition, please come up.
Thank you.
If there is opposition here.
So support goes this way, opposition goes that way.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Well, let me say this.
Yikes.
Since we have such a large contingent, before we get started with this case, to the extent that a witness has testified in support of or in opposition to what is before us, one of the things we often caution you about and would like you to adhere to is if you can avoid repeating what somebody else has said. For example, if in support A, B, C, and D, we don't need 10 people to come up and say A, B, C, and D, me too. All right, same thing for opposition, obviously it's fewer of you. But that way we can, again, keep the docket moving and we can consider the fact that multiple folks are in support for those same reasons, okay?
Also, if anybody wants to testify but hasn't signed in, please sign in first.
And are you going to swear them all, everyone in at the same
We
time?
are, but is Kiana Davis here? Okay, Ms. Davis?
Yes.
All right, and this is a request to use a portion of the premises as a banquet hall, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, yeah, we can get, everybody's able to raise their right hand. Swear everyone in?
Do you swear or affirm under the penalty of perjury that the answers that you give and the statements that you make will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Great.
I want to also remind everyone except Ms. Davis, whose spelling we already have, before you speak, say and spell your name so that our court reporter can get it down.
And I'll hear any reports from planning and staff, or staff and planning, whichever way you want to do it.
Sure, the only thing we have on this case is a conditional use as a banquet hall. There's obviously some opposition that we've received from the Hilltop 4100 Neighborhood Association, concerns about noise, parking, and other nuisance issues. And just for the board's note, the application doesn't really provide any details about daily operation of the establishment, including hours of operation, just how the business is going to run, parking, that kind of thing. So that might be, those are things that the board should probably ask questions about during this hearing.
Thank you. Planning Department reviewed this application, noted that this property is in the Park Heights Urban Renewal area. The Park Heights Urban Renewal Plan does not prohibit or otherwise restrict the proposed use of this property. The full application is for a banquet hall and a child care center, and the application for the child care center portion, of course, is not in front of the board because that is a permitted use, but the department is concerned that there were no details provided concerning drop-off or pickup of children who might be cared for at that center. With regard to the banquet hall itself, the application does not describe days and hours of operation or types of events that might occur there, and also does not touch on the question of whether there might be live entertainment in connection with banquet hall events. The application notes 75 persons would be the anticipated capacity of the banquet hall, which would require 8 parking spaces. The department notes behind this building on the lot is a paved area already used for off-street parking with access by way of the alley behind the property, and there also appears to be a driveway beside the property leading to that same space. But the applicant should confirm that her lease for use of the premises would include at least 8 off-street parking spaces on this property in order to meet the zoning code requirement. The community is concerned about some of this proposed use, and particularly because of the lack of detail in the application itself. The department is therefore encouraging the applicant to work with the community to work out some of the details. The department actually recommends deferral of a complete hearing of this application to allow the applicant to provide the board with floor plans for the 2 proposed uses of this property and details of banquet hall events and how they would be managed. The applicant is encouraged to meet and work with the communities around this site to develop detailed plans for these proposed uses of the property. Thank you.
Did they meet with the community after your encouragement?
I am not able to testify for or about that. I would say that the applicant and the community would need to address that.
No floor plan.
And we have no
plan of operation.
No, we did.
Well, we don't.
Oh, no, I'm saying I did meet with them.
No, okay. The floor plan issue. Have you provided a floor plan of how this is going to be laid out?
Yes, I sent the floor plan in when I did the application.
Do you have it in
It's
here?
2 open spaces.
Right here.
Okay.
Not much.
Martin, have that?
All right.
This.
That's not much.
Okay, so it's
Okay.
there, it's just not detailed.
Okay, Ms. Davis, go ahead.
So, my name is Kiana Davis, and I am here. I'm a child care owner. I have several businesses. I employ 14 people for the last 7 years, offering not just employment, but connections with community. We give back. Most of the people that are here are my family and other business owners. I have took on a lease at this building to do childcare on one side, intending to bring childcare to the community. And on the other side, it was ultimately set to be a banquet hall because with COVID and large families such as myself, how many people have things in a home? When I was a child, you can go to a community center or recreation. Do we even have them anymore? We don't. So I wanted to do an event space. Of course, there was a letter that was put out into the community that gave false narratives of me, saying that I was trying to open a nightclub, which definitely was not so. I think that was intended to turn the community against me. I'm saying this building that I have put over $150,000 worth of money into was sitting vacant. How many communities do you go into Baltimore City and you see vacant properties just sitting? Vacant properties mean people begin to straggle, hang around, because why? They're vacant. Why wouldn't you want to keep the communities up to date and together for people to make use, especially if it's going to create revenues, jobs, and things such as bring families and communities together. When I went to go meet with the association, it wasn't even about coming to an agreement. It was more so about a control issue. This is not a control issue. Their issue to me was, why didn't you go through us? I said, because I didn't know anything about you guys. I went through the city, which was the proper protocol. They were asking questioning the banquet hall, but then sent me a 30-question something to my email about childcare. And I'm saying, we're not even on childcare. So now at this point, it's really that you don't want me here. This is also my community just as well. And if we're talking about the building, just as he said, childcare had already been approved. Why am I receiving an email about childcare when, how do we come to a resolution if they already have it set in their mind that this is my community, in order to do something, you go through me and not through the city? The city is the proper protocol. And I get that some people feel like they've been in communities longer than others. However, that does not justify creating new things for our community. I don't plan on having I am a married woman with 4 children, all college kids, working, all of that. I don't plan on having wild parties. My thing is to create things for families, such as myself. My mother is a child of 11 children. My husband is a child of 11 children. How do you have a function with all of these people in your home? You can't.
Tell us about what it is you intend to do with the space.
I intend to, like I said, have a child care center on one side. At first, I was only going to do it for 21 kids because I already have a child care. This will be my second location.
Okay, hold on. Are we doing anything with the child care? No. All right, so let's focus on the banquet hall.
So the banquet hall would just be for events such as baby showers, wedding receptions, birthday parties for children. Is not to have I'm not trying to have live entertainment, and I'm not trying to have club kinds of things. That's not what this is for.
No catering on site or anything. It's bring your own everything.
It is bring your own things. I do have a child that we used to cater. That was a business that we had prior, so we do offer.
Oh no, I mean no kitchen on site or anything like that. Okay.
No stuff like that.
How many days a week do you plan to have this open and operating? And what would be the hours?
So the thing is, so the hours wouldn't go past 12 o'clock midnight. And so I don't really have set days. I would do 7 days a week, because if there's a death or a repass or something, I would want to honor that for a family member. There were 2 people as soon as I came and put the stuff on my window that wanted to get the building for just that reasons, repass, you know what I'm saying? So I would honor those things. So I couldn't say that I would do it only 5 days a week, 7 days,
okay, so
but it would close at midnight. And I'm kind of telling you the truth. I don't plan on, I hope everything does not run to midnight, because I'm a person that I'm in a house usually by who wants to leave their house to come and lock up behind somebody. But I also don't want to not be able to have this resource taken away from communities. I've already had people from this same community trying to get employment. So I'm just asking that.
Follow-up question about the hours.
Yeah, because we do need to focus on.
Okay, so at 12 midnight.
But so it would not be open regular hours. Would be as events happen.
Yes.
As you have events.
Yes.
So it could be if you don't have any events that week, there will be no events.
So then it's closed.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Okay.
How about the capacity?
So the capacity, I said 75, and then when I did the fire, because I added a sprinkler, they never came back with how many people I could have in the building.
Oh, so you need fire department. You would cap your capacity at whatever the fire department says.
Yes, and I did. I have upgraded the building to code. I also put in a sprinkler system that required me to pay $70,000. I mean, I'm asking to be able to make use of I've cleaned up the trash and everything on the parking lot.
I've got a question for you. And I'm a visual person, so which part of this is your building? Do I have it right?
Yes, so anything in the red in this front is the building.
Uh-huh.
So it was originally a hardware store.
Okay.
I've since tried to turn it into, so on this side it would be the event space side. When you walk into that middle door, it has 2 doors.
Okay.
So it's almost like an entryway. So I have 2 doors that buzzes you into one side and buzzes you into this other side. I've put emergency exit doors for wheelchairs and made it wheelchair accessible and everything.
The 2 sides are 2 completely different spaces?
Yes.
Okay.
And you said when you walk in those doors to the right, that would be the banquet hall space?
Yes, to the right.
You said it was the Hilltop Pro Hardware, all the red doors. All right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, ma'am.
Parking, how much parking do you have available off-site?
So we have not calculated parking spaces, but there is, I'm going to say every bit of probably 20 cars could fit, maybe more. Probably about 23, I'm going to say. Around 23 cars could fit on there comfortably. And then.
As you just heard, there are like specific dimensions that a parking space has to fit. And
Yes.
so, you know, we can make something work. You might get 23 cars in there, but I'm talking about legally, how many do, I mean, it's hard to know these things because your application doesn't contain detailed plans.
There's a parking lot behind your building?
There's a parking lot. So the MVA is directly across. And so that was another question that was brought up when they had the meeting. When they gave their meeting out, on the flyer, it said parking, Walgreens parking lot or something. And I'm just saying again, they asked me that as honesty. I said, well, I was planning on talking to the shopping center to see if it would be okay to use that parking space, because initially, if something has happened, then they would already be closed. Most of the things would be closed there.
Let's go back to behind your building. There is or is not a parking lot?
Yes, ma'am. It's a gated parking lot.
Is gated?
Yes.
And you can use it, right?
Yes, ma'am.
How many spots are there in that parking lot, right? How many drawn spots are there in there right now, if you know?
So, probably about 15 to 20.
Okay, that's the answer I think he was looking for.
It could be a little bit more because it's wide out.
We're going with, I've learned what a parking spot is today. There are 15 for right now.
Yes, ma'am.
Own that parking space
Yes,
back there? Okay.
yes.
Okay.
That comes with the building.
The rear parking lot into the building?
Yes. So initially, I keep it locked
Says it's not.
because when I first got there, I put up a like new patio furniture and flower pots. They broke the fence and stole them. So I kind of keep the gate locked up now, so.
Okay, so you basically have like 15 spaces on site
Yes,
in that lot.
There may be room for more legal parking spots.
yes, yes, okay, yes, maybe room for more legal parking spaces.
How close are you to the forum?
How close am I
To the
to?
forum? Are you far from it?
Oh, that's probably
that's by the
about
church.
3 or 4
Okay.
blocks up.
That's by the church.
Do you have, do you know how many employees you intend to employ at the banquet hall?
So that probably would be about 3 to 4, because I would need a cleaning crew. I also have somebody to manage the, because I decorate, so it's going to be a lot more detailed than just me offering the space. I would decorate for the space, everything.
3 or 4 including you or in addition to you?
No, in addition to me.
Okay. And would you all be there at the same time?
Yes, we would.
Okay.
And then we also have a team that take down and put up.
Okay.
Okay, and you understand the reason we're asking these things is because we need
Yes.
to know how
Yes,
it's
that's
going to
fine.
operate.
I'm fine. Listen.
So no on-site kitchen, but
So it has a, I have installed, I got like a microwave, the warm-up kind of things, no stuff
No
that's.
food
where you-
preparation
No,
type things.
no.
and I assume you have tables and chairs
I
there
have
for rent?
everything.
Okay.
Yes, because I originally, before this, I was housing my stuff in the storage unit because I decorated for parties, which is more of a reason. When COVID came, it was almost like I'm going to other people's settings to set up, and I got tired of it, so that is what made me find. And I mean, people were calling me all day, can you do my this, can you do my that? And I'm like, I really don't want to go use other people's facilities. I don't.
For your events, will you provide any security?
If we needed to, I would. But for baby showers
They're not
and
your,
things,
they're not your events, they're somebody else's events.
yes.
in your-
But inside of a contract,
at
I
late
would
night.
definitely put certain things. Like a young man called me for a party. He was saying things that I was asking him. I asked questions. What do you plan on doing? Because again, I just spent my money in this property. I don't want people in here doing things to my building as well. because I just spent my money. So I have cameras in every room and things of that nature that I can run from my phone. I just need to know that you're making use of the building the proper way. And again, that's my childcare on the other side. So I don't want you roaming freely through my building, and I don't want you doing things to my property where I come back the next day, something is broken where my childcare is not able to operate. So again, I am taking this very seriously. That's why I said I definitely don't want the ladies to feel like I'm bringing I don't go to nightclubs, so I'm definitely not trying to bring one to anybody's community.
So you have cameras installed inside?
I have them inside and outside.
Okay. And the outside, is it through the entire
Yes,
perimeter of the
front
building?
and back.
I'd like to ask the staff, is there a parking requirement?
Did I hear 8 spaces somewhere?
So for banquet halls, the parking space requirement is 1 per 10 persons of fire-rated capacity, which if they're 75 capacity, then you should be fine if you have 8 parking spaces. I think it's possible that if those numbers don't pan out, that she might have to come back for a parking variance.
But not right now.
But we don't have the information right now.
Can we make it? Do we have enough information?
Oh, no.
Because it's not fire rated yet. There's no fire capacity. How
Right.
can we know?
We've done things that aren't fire rated yet with the condition that it's whatever the fire.
Premised on, yeah.
So the place is completely cemented.
Sure. We're not worried about that part. It's not gonna burn down. We're worried about the people in the parking.
No, for the benefit of the board, the fire marshal will not give a fire rating for a building until the board has approved the use that's proposed. So it becomes chicken and egg in one sense.
Yeah, because a different use would have a different fire rating.
And sometimes the parking is calculated based on capacity, and sometimes it's based on square footage. So if it's square footage, we can calculate it now. If it's capacity, we might have to wait.
Right. And we won't know which one it is until.
No, it's capacity for this use.
Okay.
Okay. Do you know the square footage? Do we have that? Is that on the
I
plan?
sent one in.
It's not, but it's not calculated based on square footage, right?
Could be.
It could be.
Could be either one, that's what you just.
I thought you said this one was,
For
because it's a
banquet hall,
banquet hall.
Capacity.
It's
Right.
capacity.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Hold, go ahead.
so I'm just asking that you guys, and I know a lot because I have aunts and grandmothers and things, and I know that sometimes new things to them looks different. I am not the person that's hanging on the corner. They brought up crime. I'm not trying to bring that to a neighborhood, so I'm not the person that's standing on the corner. I'm not the person that's trying to, I would definitely, if I seen things inside of my cameras, I would immediately send somebody there. Hey, that shuts down. And I also put in my contract that if people are out of sorts, security deposit, you lose it. There are things that I'm trying to be proactive about the atmosphere that I'm bringing.
Sure. Do you have, you mentioned you have the cameras in the perimeter of the property. What about lighting?
I put brand new, there was no lighting. I put lights all around the building, so now that it lights up in the rear and in the front. Because again, like I said, when I first got there, dark, the building was old. I'm trying to get like the facade grant to fix up the front. It's things that I want to do. I go out and I give out coats and things and food and everything. And I also want to be an on-site thing, for children for feeding. So I'm just asking, I'm willing to work with them, but I don't want it to be a controlled thing of you have to do what I say versus let's get together and let's have an agreement about how we're going to move forward.
Okay.
I may have missed it, but do you have any plans for live entertainment?
No. This is not for live entertainment. I don't know.
How about this? If you have an event, will they be able to have a DJ?
Yes.
Okay. I think, does that count as live entertainment? I believe so.
Yeah, a disc jockey would be live entertainment as the zoning code defines it. However, I think for the benefit of all, there's the possibility that a temporary permit could be applied for like a one-day permit, for example, in order to do something like that.
So I did set up a speaker system where they could Bluetooth so it could be more affordable to parties. So we have the Bluetooth speakers put in.
That's not a live entertainment.
That's not live entertainment.
No, I'm just saying.
I'm asking them.
Oh, okay,
No, that's
so
not live
versus
entertainment. That'll
having a DJ, so it could be more affordable to some of my.
Yeah, I just want you to note that if you ever plan to have an event that has a DJ, because if you don't want to include live entertainment on this application, then they might have to get a special event permit and on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah, and I want to do live entertainment.
For the really lit wakes, if they need it.
I just wanted to add too that you can apply for live entertainment as an accessory use to a banquet hall, but that would have to be a future application because it's not on this application.
Yeah, I don't want live entertainment.
Not asking for it.
How about liquor? You plan to
Liquor,
have-
I don't plan on getting a liquor license.
Later the one day?
No, so when I read, I thought that only a nonprofit could do one-day liquor license, is what I thought, and I'm not a nonprofit. So it definitely would be on clients. I don't plan on providing liquor, no.
About the venue and people to clean up the venue and help set it up.
She said she has all that.
I have,
I'm saying you're providing a venue.
yes, I have a
and people
team
clean it
that
up,
cleans
help,
up
yeah.
and sets up.
Okay.
This is just giving people a bigger living room, essentially.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. Anything else you want to tell us at this
No,
point?
You get the last word.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you've got a number of people standing there, so I
Okay,
wanted to
so what she wants to.
keep it in mind that if we can keep the repetition to a minimum.
Victoria Hall, VICTORIAHALL. Ms. Davis went to the Community Association meeting once the letter was sent out saying that she was opening a nightclub so that we could meet the people in the community at the Community Association and let them know what she wanted to bring to the neighborhood. We were greeted by Hilltop 410, who basically told Ms. Davis that they control everything that happens in that neighborhood, that Hilltop 410 Neighborhood Association controlled what could come to her neighborhood. So even then, we still tried to speak with Hilltop 410 Community Association's president and let her know that, we're not trying to bring any harmful stuff, or we have security. She complained about trash. We emphasized how Ms. Davis had already cleaned up trash that wasn't even hers. She talked about the parking. Ms. Davis told her about that. She spoke about security. Ms. Davis spoke about that. At the time when we met at the church was utilizing Walgreens parking lot for us to park there. Ms. Davis even let them know that she had mentioned using Walgreens parking lot also if she ever needed overflow parking. The whole problem was Hilltop 410 told us that we should have went to the fire department and asked who they were and got permission from Hilltop 410, the young lady to my left, said that we had no right doing anything without getting her permission because that's her neighborhood. She runs the community. And the whole time we were just trying to tell her that, we know that it's always different when change comes. But we were ensuring that a learning center and an event space, we weren't trying to do anything detrimental to the neighborhood, that we wanted to work in partnership. But the feedback that we got while we were there, it was mixed. Everybody was for the daycare, but not for the event space. But what Ms. Davis wants people to know is that she's not trying to come in anyone's neighborhood. She's not trying to take over anyone's neighborhood. She's trying to bring the quality daycare and an event space, because as we stress, due to COVID, very few large families are getting together in their small houses because of constant COVID outbreaks. We explained to them the liquor, that it wouldn't be any liquor. Everything that she's explained today, she explained that day. But it wasn't received because we did not follow protocol and getting permission from Hilltop 410 before anything was done. We were even told that we should have went to the fire department across the street and asked them who ran the neighborhood, and they would have directed us to her so that she could give her approval, because she has her connections at City Hall and nothing happens without her.
Okay.
So it's just not fair that a young entrepreneur contacts the city and finds out what steps needs to be taken to do things and follows those steps, and then combatively is met by the community association who says, basically, I don't care how much money you spent, since you didn't ask me, I'm gonna make sure this doesn't happen.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right, first name is Shanice, it's Chineice, last name is Weeks, Weeks. I have known Ms. Davis for over 30 years. One of the things Ms. Davis would have welcomed in the beginning is if the neighborhood association knew she was there and they had a question about what was happening, they could have embraced a conversation. Instead, there was propaganda put out saying that she was going to be a nightclub, that she's bringing violence to the neighborhood. They even compared her business to another business that they don't want in the neighborhood. One has nothing to do with the other. Instead of telling Ms. Davis she should have come to them, if you were aware she was in the space, if you had a question about the space, start the conversation. It was very combative at the neighborhood association meeting. We were told that her former connections in City Hall no longer existed, which means she doesn't validate the person that gave Ms. Davis her permit. Sorry to say, Hilltop 410 does not distribute permits from the city. They don't direct who gives these. So it was not fair of them to be so combative to Ms. Davis because she wasn't aware of their presence. So one of the things I think that was illegal was the propaganda that was put out. You cannot defame someone's business. You didn't know what the business was bringing. You didn't know what the purpose was. And instead of opening that conversation, you put out things in writing that were untrue. They were falsehoods.
Okay. Well, I can let you know that there is a process that you're participating in now, and it's not what's been described.
Mm-hmm.
You're here for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And we will follow the process, and that's why we're asking the questions we need to ask. So rest assured, this is the process. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, anyone else at this time in support?
I'm Keanu Davis' husband, Willie Darden. W-I-L-L-I-E.
Your name again, sir?
Willie Darden.
Can you spell that for the...
W-I-L-L-I-E D-A-R-D-E-N.
Thank you, sir.
I just want to let y'all know that my wife didn't know this, but I have security team.
Mm-hmm.
I have a armed security. So any activity would be going on, we would always have security at hand. I never told her this because it was making it hard for us to open. So I actually didn't think we was going to be able to open.
Mm-hmm.
But my wife, she works hard, man. And all she wants, this is her dream. I let her take every dollar we had and put it in this dream for her. And all I'm asking is give her a chance. You don't know, I sit in that yard, I sit in that yard and out front cleaning up every day almost. Nobody approaches me in that neighborhood and said nothing like, hey, what's going on? Besides a few people walking past, say, hey, what's this going to be? And I tell them, nobody from the community come in and knock on the door or see me standing outside and say, hey, well, can I have a dialogue with y'all? Can I talk to y'all? Because it's our neighborhood. Nobody. And we there almost every day. And when it comes to trash, we clean that whole building out. You never seen trash in the parking lot. You never seen trash in the alley. I'm talking about the whole building. Wood, we clean our own trash up. And I go through the neighborhood. I go through the alley. I go through out front in the parking lot next door that the Chinese people own, and Metro PCS, they own that. I go and clean that up. Every day that I'm there. Every day I come up, I see it, I get it up. It's not my trash, but it's our building. So it's around our neighborhood. Understand? My wife worked tirelessly every day. So I just asked for them to give her a chance in the community. Thank y'all very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it, sir. All right. Okay, in terms of the opposition, come on, from the microphone, state your name, and we'll hear from you.
Good afternoon. My name is Minerva Eaton. I'm president of Hilltop 4100 Neighborhood Association. I am here on behalf of the Northwest Faith Partners, Woodmere Association, JNNRL, and CCHB, among others. There has been a direct miscommunication regarding this banquet hall. I have received a call about a possible, and this is what I was told, nightclub coming to the area. And I said, what? And they told me that the permit was already issued. And I said, that's not correct protocol because the neighborhood organizations were not contacted. So I waited, still nothing in regards to this banquet hall / nightclub. We were really concerned of the 4 neighborhood associations and the faith-based partners did get together, and we came up with these points because we are under the Park Heights Renaissance project. And with Park Heights Renaissance, we in the Park Heights / Ricestown Road areas, we have concluded with most of us, our neighborhood is mainly of 85% seniors, homeowners. And with the Park Heights Renaissance, we've had a Pepper's liquor store. They had in the back of it a nightclub. We fought hand and foot, and the surrounding liquor stores in the Park Heights / Ricestown Road area. We got together, and it was forthcoming that all of the liquor stores in the Park Heights or the Renaissance area open up at 9 o'clock and close at 10. This is the rule. Now, at Hilltop Shopping Center, which is owned by Mr. Boltansky, we had a close connection with him as well. His whole entire shopping center opens, some businesses open up at 10, some open up at 9. And they close up before 11, every last business. We are serious in our community because Park Heights / Ricestown Road, under the guidance of PHR, wanted to stop the crime, the drugs, liquor stores, our children going to school in the morning, seeing people going to liquor stores 6 o'clock in the morning. We were tired of it. So it's a collective unit. It's not just Hilltop 4100 Neighborhood Association. As a matter of fact, the banquet hall is really not, if you want to do a boundary, it's not even in Hilltop 4100 Neighborhood Association. It's like across the street, which includes the faith-based partner, which is Solid Rock Church, Whitney Association, and JNNRL. But we all work together. We, as I said before, we have worked hard to have our community the way it is, and people abide by the rules. Now, one establishment has slipped up in there, which we are really not fighting it, but really taking in consideration that it's changing the trajectory of our community.
Ma'am, what is your opposition to this project?
The opposition is, it will help to, it decreases the market value of our homes, really. Because people are not gonna wanna move there if we're gonna have all these entities with noise. Also, it's the congestion of.
Hold on. What's your basis for that statement?
And also.
That this project.
Yeah, not all these, this one specifically.
This project.
Yeah.
Describe the way it's been described.
Okay, yes. I had, well, this is just hearsay. I don't have any proof. Okay. Our seniors are just afraid for the things that are happening in downtown with all of the businesses that are open like after 12 o'clock, young people coming in the neighborhood, and with the noise and everything. Also, we are concerned about the building directly across the street from Engine 46 Fire Station, directly across the street. And they have a hard time swinging the engines in and out anyway. Now, if they're parking, if the parking is right there in front of the building, it's going to impede the service of the fire station, the engines, the flow of it.
So there's no parking on the street in front of the
No
store?
parking on the street at all.
Right.
No parking. Well, you know how some people are.
But again, this is perspective, this is a concern of
Yes.
something negative that could happen.
That could happen. That could happen. Now, in the back of the establishment, which we have seen, there is a small space. Now, if it's the overflow, now the church does have permission, and also they pay to park at Walgreens on Sundays. And we're thinking that the overflow may go to Walgreens. That's one of our questions. Did they get permission from the owner of Walgreens to park over there, which is private property? Also, we have parking over there at Hilltop Shopping Center. Did they get permission to park over there with the overflow?
Wouldn't they
The
be able to
permission-
answer that?
Yeah, that's part of the questions. We have questions. As a matter of fact, we had, like they said, we had submitted 20 questions, but we had not heard from them at all with the answers to our questions.
Were you at the meeting that they
Yes.
described beforehand?
Yes.
Would
That was the first meeting that we had when we got together.
Would you describe it as productive,
No, it
adversarial, or
was not.
something else?
It was very
What
contentious.
made it unproductive?
When the residents got up and spoke,
So
that they did not want this establishment.
when the residents were speaking, were they speaking about the project as it was described here before the board today, or were they speaking about a nightclub kind of type?
They were
situation?
speaking on the nightclub.
Is Miss Davis's testimony here today that she's not opening a nightclub, is that something that you've considered in your opposition today, or is that something that you're, that you've decided is, that you don't believe her, I guess is the right way to say it?
I'm not going to say I don't believe her, but I'm going to compare this situation. The other establishment that we are going at it with.
So I don't.
Okay, I know.
The other
We
one
have been not lied to, but we have been not truthful in regards to what's coming into our area. They say this and then something else happens. And, you know, it's just very contentious.
Okay, but it doesn't have to be that way.
It really doesn't. It really doesn't. Because in some of the businesses, we have a good business / neighbor agreement with some of our businesses who have come into the area. And we work very hard with them, and they work hard with us.
And I would gather that.
We
that's
haven't even gotten with them, you know, to do that, Ms. Davis and the rest of us.
Well.
Except
hold
for
on.
the first day. We've only met one day, and that was that initial meeting, which was very contentious.
Okay. From the gallery, we need to have one person speak. Well, that's,
Miss Davis eventually again. Where did you go? Are you,
No, she's not- I don't
you're
think
not
she's
done
done.
yet, are you?
It all depends.
well, my question was, what's your opposition to the project? So if you've spoken to all of that, then we can move to the next speaker. If there's more you want to add, I want to hear it.
The event, which she clarified that question, what time will it be over with these events? What kind of events will take place? These were some of the questions.
And understanding that if it's on a, events have to be scheduled and booked, and we may not know, so that from the standpoint of a board, it's sort of, open-ended for maybe an opening time and a closing time.
But not
So at
past
least
midnight.
But not past midnight, which is what we've heard.
And the noise level of, the band or,
No
whatever.
live entertainment.
Right, no live entertainment, even with the noise from the DJ or
There's no
whatever.
DJ.
Or whatever.
Well, that's why we asked the questions
Right,
that we
and
asked.
this is some of the questions that we had
It's for your
asked.
benefit as much as it is ours.
Yes.
So that you understand what it is they're going to do and what it is they're not intending to do.
I think she answered a lot of your questions in her testimony.
She answered a lot of them. She answered a lot.
Does that make you, does that remove any of your objections to this project, or does it not make any difference?
I think we still need to get together as the other community associations.
Sure, so in her answering the vast majority of your questions, and we can ask her when she comes back up the rest of them, you need to get together to what end? If she's answered your questions and she's told you it's not a nightclub, explain to the board, I guess, and everyone the purpose of another meeting is, because what I don't want is more fighting.
Exactly.
Terrible idea. So if she's already done, if we take care of the purpose of the meeting here today and she answers all your questions, how does that affect your opposition to this project, if at all?
It affects my opposition in that I need something in writing.
So everything that's being said here today is being taken down as a transcript, and I'm not saying that the board's going to approve or disapprove that, but we've often attached conditions to an approval, like it has to be shut down by midnight. There's no this kind of event. There's no, and I'm sure in the event that we decide to approve this, there will be some conditions. But honestly, most of the conditions we tend to put on, she's already done: lights, cameras, an ending time, the kind of events. I'm not sure what else. I guess my question for you, and trying to remove this opposition because it's someone taking a space in Baltimore and converting into something useful. My question to you is the same one that Mr. Fields just asked. What are your remaining oppositions other than you don't like the way that she went about doing this?
That has ceased.
So your opposition is over? You don't oppose the project anymore?
I'm just speaking for myself.
Okay, that's fine.
According to what she said
Today.
I would still like to get together with her. There's some other things that I need to discuss.
Okay.
Like what?
Okay, I can't force you.
Please.
I'd like to say good evening.
Good evening, ma'am.
My name is Ella Scovens. I'm 82 years old. I have been the chaplain of Hilltop. I have lived in that community since 1977. And young lady, no respect to you, I have a granddaughter trying to start a business. And I always say to her, black women can do what they want to do, so I applaud you to step out for what you're doing. But the other day, I had been sick. The other day, I went walking past Walgreens, and I saw your bulletin board up there about the duck and about your daycare. So you had panels, and then I walked all the way down. It was very well put together up there, very artistic, and I saw it. And then when I got to the end, I didn't understand. It had a thing up there about a smoking chair and whooper, whatever it is. I did not know what it was. So what I did was, I called my granddaughter up. I said, I'm looking at this chart. I said, it's very well put together. And I didn't know what that was. Now, nobody has explained that to me. So when I saw it, I did not know what it was. Because we have had problems in our community where motor vehicle was, it was Crest Theater. And the moment that they turned it over, the same night, my husband had to take me to work. I worked in Levendale for 35 years. Take me to work. They were up there doing the drugs, and 2 people got shot. And I had to go back home. Another thing we had, they were coming through there, and I had to catch a cab to work. The drug dealers were sitting cars up on the pavement. We have fought so hard to work what we got. And now it's bad. And I said, Lord, I got to leave my home because the kids and the parents see the children doing wrong things and they don't correct them. When I was coming up, the mother, and I wish these kids now had the foundation that my mother had for me. And if you speak to them, the things they say to you, look at that old lady. I'm scared sometimes to come out my house and go just around the thing. But my thing of it is, explain to me what that last thing is. You had, it was something there. I don't know what it was. But it was one of the panels that you had.
So it's the rental equipment.
Event space rental,
We rent
backdrop.
out our chairs, we rent out our tables, we rent out hookah equipment, we rent out those things. I don't smoke and I don't want smoking in my building.
Oh, I stopped smoking with 25 cents a pack.
I have never.
Okay.
Y'all laughing. Y'all don't remember that, 25 cents a pack.
Wow.
Okay.
Health, because you want to live. But I just want to say to y'all, and this, that Miss Minerva has been the staple of that community. And it's not that we're trying to stop anything to happen.
Please,
Family,
please.
I know y'all was laughing and being disrespectful to her. So, and I know sometimes you don't know, but what I know is, and it is an event plan up there by the bank. It's been there for a while. We've never had any
Speak to us,
problems
ma'am.
out of that.
Speak
And
to us.
it's a banquet hall. So anyway, I just want to say to you all, to the whole family, to all of, and to you, I'm glad to see that this is what you want. I know when you spend money, I know what my granddaughter going through, but we got to work together. We got to listen to each other, and sometimes we just got to be quiet and then say, okay, let's see what we can do, because we got to raise our future generation. They are our future generation, and whatever they're going to be, we need to make sure that it's going to be right for them. So we all have to drop our pride. We have to let it go and say, okay, we're coming together for this community, because I want to stay a little bit longer. That includes you too. So anything that needs to be done, we don't do it by this and that and this and that. You have to sit down, like they have a job to listen and to decide what's right and what's not.
Ma'am, and speaking
And you
to
know
us.
what? And I'm thankful. So I just want to say that if we can get together, do what it's doing, because this is what, if it wasn't for this lady, the drugs would still be up there. If it wasn't for this lady, I would have to leave my home, go into the senior building.
Right.
And this lady don't get no sleep.
All
This
right.
lady, everybody calls her.
Okay.
And they be worrying her. And I said to her, and I respect her, because when my mama was sick, I couldn't even get my family. I'm a cancer survivor. They wouldn't come and stay with my mama while I go get infused.
Thank you, ma'am.
So I'm thankful for her.
Thank you
okay?
for your testimony.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you, family, for being supportive.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
I think, Miss Davis, I think we still have some more.
One more opposition.
It's almost your turn.
Yeah, I'm all for church. Come on.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir. Your name, sir?
My name is Howard Rory, Howard. Last name is Rory. I am a member of the Hilltop 41 Association. I came down here today with the thought that this was going to be a nightclub. So this is what I was told. I've been down here for a few hours, and I was getting ready to walk out after listening to the lady speak. Understanding what this, if this is going to be for child care, if this is going to be where a community can be a community controlled, then I would like to say that as a black man, to a black person, to a black woman who's trying to do something good in the community, then I would say that I would support that endeavor. Now, Also, with that being said, I came down here with the concern that it would, like I said, it was going to be a nightclub. And if that is not the case, and after listening, you know, ears turn, hearts feel different. Being a large member in a lodge, we have to have social intercourse, controlled social intercourse versus being on the streets. And I want my words to be on record. Now, only thing I just have to say is that I heard today the opposition from both sides. And I think that cooler minds should prevail, that getting together and speaking about your similarities, your concerns, versus the differences will make this project a better project. And I thank you, I thank Ms. Minerva for bringing me down here. And I'll finish up by saying God bless each and every one of y'all.
Anyone else?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Shaquetta Wallace, CHAQUETTA, WALLACE. I work for Councilman Isaac Gitsu Schleifer, and I'm here on his behalf. Councilman Schleifer received a lot of community input regarding this, and he wanted to suggest a postponement until an MOU could be worked out between the business and the community associations who are concerned. He has not heard what has transpired today, and I do not know if he would change his opinion, but that is what he sent me to say on his behalf.
Okay, thank you. We're here. Amen. Should have done that a long time.
What?
You should have gotten word that he would like it postponed.
Yeah, no. Do we move back to Ms. Davis now? Oh.
Sorry. Chad Leo, CHAD, Leo, LEO, worked for Senator Jill Carter here on her behalf as well. I'd like to commend both parties for the work that they have done. It's a very contentious subject, but I, applaud you for wanting to invest in the community and wanting to bring new opportunities to the community. So I appreciate that, and thank you on her behalf. Thank you for your leadership with that. I do concur with what the councilman said. I do think it may be useful for a memorandum of understanding to be in place between the two parties, just so they can solidify what is going on, what the understanding between both parties, because it is, just as much as her community, it's, her community as well. So getting the two sides of the community together to do an understanding and have everything in place, I believe would be useful. The only thing that I would have hesitation about is the 12 p.m. closing. I feel like that's a little too late. I don't know a baby shower that goes to 12 p.m. So I would suggest maybe putting a 9 or 10 p.m. Place in there, just to quell some of the concerns of a nightclub or whatever those concerns were. So those are just my recommendations. And again, I appreciate you for your leadership.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Davis, I do have a couple questions for you, and then are you interested in signing an MOU?
No.
Okay. I mean, you do not have to. I was just wondering.
No, I'm willing. They can, at free will, stop in, come together. I'm willing to do anything that is going to be calm and just. I'm fine with them coming in. I'm not a person that is not open to loving people, loving on people, and coming together with people. I don't want to be forced to do things. That is not what this is for. And I don't want people using their weight to force things. We can have the right to create relationships. I've known sometimes you get together, you dislike somebody, the main person you love at the end. So maybe that could be one of these situations. I don't know. But I've done what I was supposed to do by going through the city's protocol, and I admire them for wanting to keep their community, you know, the only thing to do, that's the right thing to do, to want to keep your community together. But I'm not a person that's trying to tear their community down. I'm trying to come to the community with some decent things, you know? And as I said, I don't mind getting together with them, but I don't want it to be a controlled environment. And that's what I got when I went to the meeting. It was like a controlled environment. I don't want that. We can come together on some things. And again, as he just said, to address the 10 o'clock, birthday parties go longer than 10. So I didn't just say, I don't want it to make it seem like I'm opening this just for baby showers. I didn't say that. So on the record, let's be clear. Birthday parties, repasts, baby showers, retirement parties. It can be family gatherings, just Christmas, Thanksgiving. Because I know my family, we usually get to Patapsco Arena because everybody's house, who wants all those people in their house? They don't. So we get to Patapsco Arena and we have our, gathering. But I'm just saying to you, I am willing to meet with them. They can come in. This is an open door policy. They can open the door. The fire department never ever had any complaints or anything. You know what they did? They came in, they's like, hey, we so glad you coming. They came over and they asked me, if you're open in September, can we do this in there? This is what, they came in and I say, walk in. It's directly, the fire department is directly across the street. I have welcomed them. They come, and when I don't come for days, you know what, they come over there and they be like, where have you been? And I'm like, hey, I've been doing some other things. So creating relationships. I've had several people call me and just say, I saw this enamel on the window, and I just wanted to know what you was doing with the building, and when is this opening? I had a couple of gentlemen call me just to say that. So I'm just saying I am open to anything. I am not here. This is my family. We are coming here as a family to ask everybody to understand we're doing family things for other families. This is not ruckus. It's not shoot 'em up, bang, bang. This is not what we're trying to do. Or we would not be here together. This is unity.
All right.
Did you have anything else you wanted to address about the opposition?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you so much for your presentation, and thank you all as well.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it.
Oops, excuse me. So I probably should have read the definition of banquet hall at the beginning.
I thought you did.
I didn't, no, because it's kind of long, and it reflects the, I think, concerns that some people have had because some of these locations have been used in the past for parties, that kind of thing. So here's the definition of banquet hall, which has been updated recently. So first of all events have to be directly managed by the owner of the facility or a person employed by the owner. It's used for serving food or beverages provided by the owner or by caterers and suppliers approved in advance by the owner. It serves designated groups that before the day of the event have reserved the facility for banquets or meetings and provided all insurance certificates, security contracts, off-street parking contracts required by the facility's owner, to which the general public is not admitted, for which no admission fee is charged at the door, and in which no third-party promoter is involved or stands to profit. That is the definition of a banquet hall.
Good.
So that is all included without you having to put any of those conditions in there. All right.
Does not.
So that being said, conditional use banquet hall. So the conditional use factors apply.
I lost my paper. Bill?
I don't have one.
All right, here we go. I think that we skip straight to Schultz v. Pritz, right? In order to deny conditional use, the board must find facts and circumstances that show that the particular use proposed at the particular location proposed would have adverse effects above and beyond those inherently associated with having a banquet hall, irrespective of its location within the zone.
Right.
I don't think that we can deny the conditional use based on that standard.
Agreed.
Agreed. All right. Any other of the factors that you want to consider that are listed under conditional use?
Oh, I was gonna
standards?
say about the, here, we do need more for the, let's see. It does not affect, the establishment, location, construction, maintenance, or operation of this banquet hall is not detrimental to or endangering of the public health, safety, or welfare. In fact, quite the opposite. It gives people a place to go that's not their house, and it's got cameras and lights, and she's cleaned up the place. It's not precluded by any law or urban renewal plan. It is definitely not contrary to the public interest. And the authorization is in harmony with the purpose and intent of the code. And that's considering where it's located, the traffic patterns, the surrounding area, the proximity of churches and schools and other buildings, the character of the neighborhood even. So for all of those reasons, I would say that we approve this, but the condition is that midnight. That's the one condition I do want to put on it. I don't know if anyone else has any other ones.
Good with me.
No, I would say cameras inside and out, to identify that those already exist.
Mhm.
That's
I
fine,
believe you.
that's fine.
Just
Your
put it on.
testimony's fine. And so,
Okay, cameras inside and out, closure at midnight,
lighting,
lighting. Okay,
particularly outside.
anything else?
Do we want to even address live entertainment or just?
It wasn't in the application.
It's not a lot, yeah.
Right.
I can make clear in the resolution that live entertainment has not been requested, and so
Okay. That's fine.
we haven't granted
That's
it.
sufficient.
And it would be, so in the future, it would be, live entertainment would be a whole different thing to come for, and so
Right.
would, in the event that the fire department says something about parking, that would be something else, but that might be a non-issue.
It might, yeah. They would have to come back if the capacity is much higher, which would mean that they would need more parking spaces. You know, it depends obviously on the dimensions of the lot and
Yeah.
how many cars can fit, but that would be a future hearing.
Yep.
Okay?
Live entertainment, you said included for DJ, is that correct?
Yes.
Live entertainment includes a DJ,
DJs are
so
considered live entertainment.
you would need to get a special event permit for that.
For the events.
Or
where you
come
have-
back.
Yeah, or come back for a general blanket. Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you. One more case.
Did you need us to, we all were yeses, right?
Yeah, we are.
Yes, we're all yeses.
Thank you.
Congratulations. All right.
Enjoy.
All right, calling the final case on the docket, 2022-230, 1323 North Caroline Street, Mia Rogers. She here? Here we go.
Wait, which one was this? 2022-20?
Ms. Rogers? Street.
Yes.
Come on up.
Good afternoon. My name is Mia Rogers, MIAROGERS.
If you just give us a moment for them all to, yeah.
Get outside.
Ladies and gentlemen, if we can ask you all to have your conversations in the hallway, so this young lady who's waited a long time might have her time.
What's going on in the community, and you gotta handle your business. You don't show up at the end of the hearing saying, "Oh."
You're talking about Yitzi and everything.
Yeah, I mean.
Just, you go to the front, tell us that you're here. and then-
Okay, Ms. Rogers, this is a request to, wait a minute, where are we?
Uh-oh.
To use as a multifamily dwelling consisting of 3 dwelling units?
Yes.
Okay. Could you swear the witness, please?
Do you swear or affirm under the penalty of perjury that the answers that you give and the statements that you make will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
I'll hear from planning and staff, or vice versa.
Thank you. Planning Department has reviewed this, pardon my voice. Planning Department has reviewed this application, noted that this property is in the Oliver Urban Renewal Plan area. This property was last authorized for use as a single-family dwelling according to records available to the Planning Department, and that is a permitted use in the R8 zoning district. With specific regard to the Urban Renewal Plan, the Oliver Urban Renewal Plan does not prohibit the proposed use, but the plan requires a minimum lot area of 1,100 square feet per dwelling unit in multiple family dwellings. This property has a lot area of approximately 1,350 square feet, And there is no provision for waiver or variance of the requirement that's in the urban renewal plan concerning lot area. Therefore, this property is not eligible for use as a multifamily dwelling due to the limited size of the lot. For that reason, the department recommends disapproval of the application because the board is not authorized to approve conversion of a single-family dwelling to a multifamily dwelling in the R8 zoning district where the property is located, and because the applicable urban renewal plan would not allow use of this particular property for multiple family dwelling use. Thank you.
Ms. French.
I don't really have anything to add other than what Mr. French already said. It's just that residential conversions from single family to multifamily have to be done by city council ordinance under the code in the zoning district, which I believe is R8.
Okay, Ms. Rogers, having heard what the code says, what say you?
So the variance was requested not to be approved because of the parking variance? Was that correct?
No. You're seeking to convert a single-family dwelling to a multifamily dwelling. That's not allowed under the code in this zoning district. So that's what the code says. If you have a single family, this present code does not allow you to convert that single-family dwelling to a multifamily, given the location of the property.
Okay, so even if I had space in the back too, so it's not a...
It's not an issue about what space you have or whether it would be a great idea or whether it would, be comfortable if you could do that. The code doesn't allow that action to take place. And so we're without authority to grant that relief.
Okay.
Because the code is part of the law. It won't allow us to do that.
Okay, and there's no exceptions, like there's no other alternative that could be...
Not to create a multifamily dwelling at that location.
Without city council.
Without, city council.
Yeah, so normally in this zoning district, you could go to your city council person, which is, I think, what I suggested in the email I sent. But this specific property is located in the Oliver Urban Renewal Plan, like Mr. French said. So I don't think that that is possible, given the small lot size that you have. We can't give variances to an urban renewal plan. And so I don't think that you will be able to get this from the city council either.
Okay.
When you bought it, the third level has a kitchen and a bed and a bath? Yeah, that's what Redfin is telling me. Again, right?
So common.
You're not the first person that's come before us where that's been a thing, yeah.
That's why I was asking, was there any alternative because of the way, it's already laid out?
Do you have any evidence that it was ever legally used as a multifamily?
I don't have any evidence to prove that. I don't, other than the layout itself,
Yeah.
How many meters are there, BGE meters? Do you know?
I think that was 3, but I can't confirm that.
Okay.
Because it was purchased like that, and we didn't think, it would be a big deal, but because it was zoned as single family, we didn't want to put too much, money into it and then be denied, so we tried to take the proper steps to it. We just wanted to create more, affordable housing. And, whatever it took to do that, we would definitely, wanted to be in compliance with that, so.
So would you like to withdraw your appeal and try and see if you can find some evidence of it having been legally used for that multifamily dwelling?
Because if we deny it, it's longer till you can come back. But if you withdraw it on your own before we make a decision.
Can I postpone, can I ask for a postponement?
You can do that as
You
well.
can do that
Okay,
too.
yes.
I'd be happy to grant it.
I appreciate it, especially after this month. Please, I
You already know.
Do you want to just contact us when you have it, and then we can put you back on the docket?
Okay,
Yeah.
that is
That
fair,
way.
yeah. So would I contact back the main?
You can contact our office. Roxana is
Okay.
our legal assistant.
Okay.
You can just email the main line, which is
Gotcha. Okay.
bmza@baltimorecity.gov, or you can call the main line, and we'll put you back on the docket if
Gotcha.
you find something.
Okay, wonderful.
Thank you, ma'am.
so much.
Good luck.
Have a
Appreciate
good
your
day.
patience.
Feel sorry for her.
I know.
And we are off the record officially.
It happens. I mean, it happens.
Have you, every time someone says